All right, we're live. Welcome back to the number one inaugural live stream of the channel. If that confuses some of you, it is because over the past couple of weeks, and I've spoke about it, I've said that I was thinking about deleting all of my videos just to restart all over again making videos. Now, I deleted live streams too, which in hindsight I probably shouldn't have done because that's not the same thing. But I did it. What's up, Litholdus? How you doing, homie? But I ended up sitting down and doing it. And believe me, it took a while too because I had a lot of videos going back to like 2020. So yeah, we're going to start with a clean slate. I think the first bunch of videos I make are all going to be on the various free league games that I am comfortable with and I feel like I can give a good review on. As always, the live streams, while I like to talk about games, they're a lot more freeform and we can talk about whatever. But all right, we got her.
Hello.
What's up, Les? How are you?
Oh, good. A little tired. Stayed up almost all night.
Gaming?
Yep. That's
Awesome. We of course tomorrow last night was an off night, so we didn't game. And I have to tell you, I was freaking jonesing like all night. It was like I was just sitting around staring at my dice and stuff. You know what I mean?
Gee.
I
Yeah.
was just like I even called the storyteller. I'm like, what the hell are you doing tonight? And he's like, well, I'm on call because he does a lot on call for his work. And I'm like, again? And he's like, well, my rent don't pay itself. And I was like, well, that's actually true. I get it.
That is a fair point.
That's a fair point. I can't be pissy, and then I was being pissy, all just walking around in a bad mood all day. And my wife's like, are you in such a bad mood? I'm like, I don't know. I just feel very upset. Come here. I don't have any.
You didn't get to the game, so you got to be upset.
And basically, I figured it out. It took a long time because I've never really thought about it. Look at him. He's like, hey, have you been eating anything good? Yes, I ate a steak earlier. And you're
Also put up
I
had
didn't
to
get
put up
you.
a fence for my neighbor too.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
It's always
Yeah.
good to help a neighbor out. You never know when you're going
Yeah.
to need help from them.
I probably wouldn't ask help from her anyway. I mean, she's getting up there in the years. I wouldn't want to bother her.
Yeah, but you don't know. You might need an apple pie baked.
Fair.
And she might be the perfect person to bake that apple pie. So, I mean, no matter how old or whatever a person is, there's always going to be something they can do.
Oh yeah, I know.
Some
I would feel
skill.
bad.
If nothing else, like when
Yeah, here.
I worked with a guy and he got bladder cancer because for whatever reason, brain and bladder cancer are huge killers of firefighters. A lot of firefighters die of those things. Oh, we got Doc. What's up?
Hey, Doc.
How's it going?
And
What's going
I
on with
remember.
what's going on with your channel? I saw it the other day. Everything's down.
Everything's gone. He
But
deleted
don't you
everything.
remember like a week or two ago when I was talking about deleting everything, just starting over?
Oh, okay. I did.
Because I feel like I just talk about the same stuff all the time anyway. So the first lot of actual videos on my channel are going to be more in-depth reviews of free league games I know. So that'll be like 5 videos because I'll get into Dragonbane and make a video or two on that. Then I'll get in Twilight 2000, then Coriolis, and then Blade Runner, and then what's the 5th one? Oh, the One Ring.
The
One Ring I could do 5 videos on.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the source book, Adventures in the Lone Lands, is amazing, and the Moria book, oh my goodness, you know what I'm saying?
I've heard the Moria book is really good.
It is insane, and
people
I
say
have
it's
the
that
Mercs
great.
one, so I might do a comparison video, like the original 1980 whatever Middle Earth role playing Moria versus this monstrosity. Because I mean, it details like every part of Moria with maps and everything. It goes into the fact that all of the goblin tribes in Moria are not friends. Like they'll gang up on like intruders, but they're not friends. And there's like 4 or 5 tribes, and so depending on how you play your cards right, you could actually get the orcs warring with each other. And then it gets into Durin's Bane and some. This dork did not show up on my stream today, even after I called him and sent him a link. That is true. You know what I did? You called me. I was asleep. You told me about the link. I said yes. I meant to get up, but then I immediately fell back asleep. I was up really late last night because I watched Late Night with the Devil or whatever it's called. That movie. Is it Late Night or Midnight with the Devil?
I don't know.
Anyway, it was like an hour and a half long movie, right? Well, the first hour and 10 minutes, I'm just sitting there like, okay, whatever. That last 20 minutes, I was shaking. I was like, oh my God, this is scary as hell. You know what I mean? It was like, it was like, I guess they call that a slow burn type of movie.
There's one of each. There's a book called Midnight with the Devil, and apparently there's a streaming show called Late Night with the Devil.
Hey,
Yeah, this
nerdy
one
goblin.
starred the guy that played Coco in Blade Runner 2047.
Oh, okay.
James,
Right.
the chat's filled with nerdy goblins.
Nerdy goblin.
Goblins? What the
Picked them up
goblins?
over me. No, I was watching that last night. Scared the shit out of me too. Just the last, because it's like the movie tells you what's going to happen throughout the movie, but it does it so subtly that it's not until like that last 10 minutes when everything comes together and you're just like, well, and it is scary. It is just scary. I was scared.
Yeah, boy.
But I mean, if you're not the kind of person that's easily frightened by like demonic possession and like weird shit, then you'll probably just be like, whatever.
Yeah, that's never done it for me. The horror movies I like are like
On the
Alien, The Thing.
I see. I have the decency to come on and at least say hi. Me and Bear were worried about you because all your videos were gone.
I told everyone a week ago,
You
at
didn't tell
least
me.
a week ago, that making videos about things has become incredibly boring because it seems like we just talk about the same shit over and over again.
See, there was people thinking that you got your videos erased because of
Or
Being you.
political shit.
YouTube.
Yeah, we thought
I've
YouTube.
yet to get an actual strike. I currently have a warning for possible misinformation involving the coup.
Yeah, we thought that YouTube got rid of your stuff.
But they didn't.
Oh.
Well, if YouTube got rid of my stuff, I already told you what I'd do.
Yeah, make a new channel.
No, I'd just go to Rumble.
I'll just go to Rumble.
I got a Rumble channel there. I'd have
Rumble
to work
is
at
getting-
figuring out how to freaking live stream on it, and I just live stream and do whatever I do on Rumble.
I tried to transfer my stuff to Rumble. It just didn't work, it seems.
I really wish StreamYard, and I pay enough for this shit that they should do it, would allow me to auto upload to Rumble, because it'll let me auto upload to like 20 things,
But not Rumble.
You know, like I can
No.
upload to LinkedIn, I can upload to all this shit.
Cute dog,
I can
Hungar.
upload- I can make long form videos on Twitter too.
What kind of
So,
dog
I
is that?
mean,
Part Buick and a little bit of monkey.
Ah,
oh, your dog?
Yeah, it's a mutt.
Yeah, that's a George Carlin skit for those of you who aren't old enough to know.
My wife got it from her daughter
okay.
and had it on the truck with her, but she was really nervous on the truck. So she asked if she could stay at the house. And I was like, well, since you pay most of the bills, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
he's probably
And-
really nervous on the truck because even as a dog, she knew it was a female driver.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh." Anyway, so there's your free dose of misogyny, ladies.
She immediately bonded to me
Enjoy
and
it.
thinks that I'm the greatest thing ever.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
somebody's
so
in the
up
private
all
chat.
night,
Bear.
this guy playing the game. Me,
Hey, Bear.
I was so desperate for
Bear.
a game yesterday.
Get
Bears
in
in,
room.
Yep, Bear's in the room.
Bears in a room. Okay, let's get
Doc's
a bear.
back.
I was so desperate for a game yesterday, I was offering to run one. I was like, look, I will run a game.
Look, if I wasn't playing 2 games that day, and you asked me, I would have joined.
Then you
I-
called me at like
I only
9
run
o'clock.
live. That's what makes it hard. I only run live.
Yeah.
And when I put out the thing saying I would run a game, the only people that responded was my brother and the storyteller of the game. It was like, oh no, I lied. My filthy hippie friend said that he was really tired and he just wanted to stay in.
Oh, is this the Baptism of
Considering
Fire
he
game you were
worked
talking
like
about?
$100. What's that, brother?
Was that the Baptism of Fire game you were talking about?
Yeah, he was going around
I
vampire.
was going to run vampire. I'll run anything.
Ah.
I was like, I am so fucking bored. Come over. Let's hang out and drink energy drinks and play whatever you want. Because
What
the
happened to all your
told me
videos? I'm
if,
sure you've already covered this, but I missed it.
Okay.
Yeah, he deleted them all.
Why?
He got bored.
I'm redoing them.
Okay, that
Those
you
are
can't
your-
fight that.
Yeah, guys. This just proves you don't actually listen to me. Because
No, we really don't.
if the video existed, which it don't currently, a week and something ago during a live stream, hell, you might not have been here, Bear, so I'm going to cut you a break.
Thanks.
I had said I'm very seriously thinking about deleting everything on my channel and just starting over.
I thought
One,
that-
because I think I can do a better job than I did, and two,
I think you
because
were
of-
contemplating this for a
Really?
while, weren't you?
huh?
I think you were contemplating this for a while.
Yeah, because you're always online with me, Leth, so you probably know as much about what I'm thinking as I do.
I vaguely remember.
I wasn't
you
here for the last
mentioned
week, I don't think,
offhandedly.
but I do remember you talking about that before about deleting.
See, now
all
that I
of
brought it up, some of you are remembering. Yeah, it's basically was 100% boredom combined with I think I can better organize things. So when I do all my free league games, I'm going to create a free league playlist, and it's just going to be all free league.
Makes sense.
And it was literally easier for me to delete the videos and just redo them better than it was to try and go through 700 videos and organize them correctly.
Yeah, TCG.
Oh god, it sucks when you have to
TCG
do
told
that.
me about it today. After
Oh,
I got a
Bear
post
got off
from
the
somebody
show.
I never heard of being like, "Where's all your videos, bro?" And I'm like, I don't even know who you are.
I need to go through a lot and organize a lot of things.
But yeah, so the first thing, like I said, is going to be multiple videos about all the free league games I own, which is very many. So Bear will get to skip all of the Coriolis videos if he wishes. But there will be videos on Twilight 2000, Dragonbane, One Ring, frickin' Blade Runner.
So based on all of
etc.
that, you'll get to see me go, afuera, afuera, afuera.
And then I might actually do a whole playlist on my opinions on vampire.
Tomas.
Oh, and some of you have known that I've been on quite the crusade lately concerning vampire. And I found another old school player who does Lore by Night is his channel.
Yeah, I've been watching his stuff. I've watched it a couple of times.
Yeah, he does it from like the position of his actual character, which is, I guess, a Nosferatu.
Yeah. I kind of like that.
He goes off in his video about Bruja.
Yep.
Like he's as bad as me. He's like, sure, you can call him Bruja if you've only been playing for the last decade, but anyone who's played longer than that knows that
it's Bruja.
The Spanish guy who wrote the Bruja handbook for first edition specifically put the pronunciation down as Bruja.
I had to teach my Brazilian friend about that.
So I was laughing. I was like, I'm not the only one. It's not just me. I'm not a crazy person.
He wanted to call them Bruja, so I had to correct him on it.
Yeah, it's like, why would any vampirist, because Bruja was a vampirist, embraced by the second generation, why would her name be Bruja? Thousands of years before any Spanish or Romance language even existed.
Sounds like a lot of hoopla to me.
Sounds like a lot of nonsense to try and explain why Mark Reinhagen used really, really common terms to identify the clans that he didn't understand himself because he didn't do his own fucking research. So now he has to do reinventive history in all of his source books to make it all make sense. But I could be wrong.
To be fair, Bear, all of the source books on the clans contradict themselves like 50 times.
Oh, fuck yeah.
There's like 23 creation myths for, and in 5th edition, if you get like Cult of the Blood Gods, it literally adds like, 24 religions that vampires follow.
Dang.
And they can be anything from the run-of-the-mill, we think Cain is our Messiah type bullshit to you name it. There's even one group of the Hecata, which are basically the Giovanni, that are Aztecs.
Because, of course, when I think Giovanni, I think Mexico.
Yeah, but they're not Giovanni, but they were necromancers. And somehow or another, a few of them got embraced during the European thing. And that couple managed to stick around. Because
so my question is how many pips do they all have in hoop jumping? Because that's what this is. It's all this is jumping through hoops and mental gymnastics to make bad name choices seem less weird.
Well, these guys are all called Hecata. They're just a bloodline of the clan Hecata.
Oh, okay.
And then you can buy lore, or you can pay dots on your character sheet for lore sheets to show how involved you are in your, stuff.
That's why I stopped playing the damn game. It got out of control.
There are Brazilian.
You got the Scottish Giovanni, who are all cannibals. They were actually cannibals before they got embraced. Giovanni just didn't care. They're like, you like eating people. That's cool. Hey, X-Nerd Prime, how you doing?
Is it becoming a vampire an evil downgrade if you're already cannibal?
Unless you have the flaw that forces you to consume flesh instead of blood, yes, I would think so. No, Xnard, I've been talking about deleting everything on my channel for a long, long time. Well, okay, a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. Maybe
over that. It was
maybe
for
a month
while.
or so, whatever, so that I can redo it all, because I'm not going to lie, guys. I'm not going to self-diagnose because that's lame and weak, but I might have a problem.
No shit.
Really?
OCD on it, man.
You
And I just
might
got to the
have a
point where I'm
problem.
deleting all this shit. Now, I could have pulled a Sean and just deleted the whole channel and recreated a new one. Because heaven knows that Sean did that twice, I think. He deleted a channel that had like 20,000 subscribers. That was back during the height of the RPG Brigade, because he's big into that. So what are we talking? 10, 15 years? And then something happened and he deleted his whole damn channel. So no, I didn't do that. But and of course I left my posts and I still make funny meme posts, but the plan is currently Free League games, as I said. And then after that, I'll probably do Adventure Conquer King again. And then after that, see, this is good. Now I have plans. I deleted everything because I thought I was like, I'm basically finished. I've reviewed everything I care to review. I'm like not making videos anymore because who gives a shit? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
Well,
you pulled
I
off
don't.
an amazing magic trick tonight. You got
But
this
by
asshole to
deleting
come on a
all the
stream after
videos-
dark.
Right. By
That's
the
amazing.
hey, what's up, Shark Simplify? By deleting all the videos, now I have a goal, which will be to remake all the videos. And if it takes as long as it did last time, I'll finish sometime in 2020. So
2020.
Yeah, are you going backwards in time now?
I'm
Yeah,
going back
because
one time, 2030. At least somewhere in 2030, 2030-ish. Because I think I deleted about 7 years worth of videos.
Fun.
So yeah. I have actually another channel, believe it or not, but I can't remember the password or the email. But there's another channel with me on it talking about games.
I don't have that at least. I somehow kept this one going forever.
This is because when I could no longer get into the old one, my daughter helped me create a new, like, super secure freaking email and blah, blah, blah. And,
Yeah.
I created this channel, and so this is the one.
What
Right.
are you doing?
Shark, I will be making videos, my good man. I am remaking a lot of the videos of games I've already done, hopefully better, more succinctly, more informative, and also I'm going to make them like when I did the Conan videos, I put them all in the Conan playlist. But so every type of game I do is going to have a playlist. You're going to have the Free League playlist.
Yeah, but you got rid of our live stream game.
Oh
Okay.
shit, that is the worst. But we still need to do part 2 because remember your character had landed that piece of shit. What's the name of those books? Outrigger on that island
Mm-hmm.
because you're trying to find your way back to the mainland. Because this guy took up a job on a merchant ship heading north along the western coast of Hyboria, and then they caught a storm. And during the course of this big storm, got blown off course, and the ship got attacked by what were they, like eels
Yeah.
that were eating holes. Like, think about woodworm, but gigantic woodworms that were literally eating holes into the bottom of the ship. And he managed to go down with the ship, but he grabbed onto some flotsam and washed up on an island somewhere where the whole tribe there worshipped a giant ape, but they didn't tell him that. And they spent like a week fattening him up and having him have sex with all of their females, which I guess is pretty cool for his character. But I mean, that helps, I guess, with the inbreeding. But then after he got done with that, they tucked him up and dumped him into the cavern where the giant carnivorous ape was. And he had to fight with that. And if it weren't for an incredibly lucky set of ones that he rolled, that ape was killing him. He was on his way out. So there's basically the thing.
Hey, sometimes
And
it's better
then,
being lucky than
because
good.
I watched Moana. After he killed the ape, he started looking around the cavern and he found some old outriggers. And he found that it was a sea cave. So, you know, there was an outrigger and a way out. So he got on the old piece of crap outrigger and he started selling off and he didn't even know what direction he was really going in, but he found another island, and he was pulling up there to see if he could find water and stuff. So the
No.
continuing adventures of Hungar's what was your character? A barbarian?
Yeah, a big redheaded, pale, freckled, frickin' sunburnt barbarian now.
Yeah, you're I think
attacked.
Berthunian or Asgardian or something.
I feel very attacked by that description, man.
Yeah, right.
Redheaded,
frozen
pale,
north,
freckled,
too.
sunburnt. This is me.
Yeah,
I
from the
mean-
frozen north, even.
I'm
I
pale,
think he was-
redheaded, not
He might
freckled.
have
though.
been Asgardian. He might have been
I
Berthunian.
do
Whichever.
sunburn
You know
stuff.
those countries.
I
way
was
up.
Russian.
Well, if he's
Berthunian,
redhead,
then.
he'd have to be Vanyar.
He wasn't Vanyar. He was Berthunian, which are like the Proto-Slavs.
Yeah, so he's got Vanyar blood in him somewhere because that red hair is a Vanyar.
Red hair
trait.
is Vanyar, yeah, because the other one has
Blonde
gold.
is Asgard and Aesir. And, red
one has gold and the other's
That's right.
known for
I've
red.
learned a shit ton about Conan since I started running the game in Hyboria. That's right. Fucking step.
Well, I'm going to bounce and go make dinner.
Okay, see ya.
All right, bro.
Good
Thanks
to
for
see you,
dropping
man.
in.
Bye, Hungar. I
Later,
won't take it
Hungar.
personally.
See ya.
Bye, guys. Peace, love, and chicken grease. But I'm hungry. I'm
Also,
even
Hungar,
starvarian.
remember, it's better to be lucky than good.
Oh, yeah.
He learned that because, like I said, he rolled the dice and they come up ones, and I was like,
Yep. Well,
okay.
Through that, I learned that in life.
I learned that in that war game I used to play.
Now, I learned that in real life.
I mean, anyone who's ever played any die 20 game knows that if you got to roll those die 20s and you get a couple of ones, you're set.
I know my friend, he
Right.
had terrible luck, and I just had abnormally good luck whenever I played against him. So I'd almost always win, even though I shouldn't have.
Jeff is loving that Nerdy Ogre's got a copy of us. Nerdy Ogre is our resident Palladium guy. And I will be doing an in-depth review of a Palladium game. Recon.
Yeah, I got all the
Advanced Recon.
I got all the Palladium core rule books.
Or I might do something just to make Max Leal lose his damn brain and do like an in-depth review of Savage Worlds Rifts, since I have almost all of the books. Oh, his wife is talking to him. And of course, the purists think that's the worst thing ever.
My connection's not very good. I think I'll have to head off here, though. I'll see ya.
See you, Let. Thanks for dropping
Later,
in, bro.
See ya.
Yeah, I wish I had picked up the Savage Worlds Pathfinder box set when it wasn't $500 on the secondary market.
I don't even understand the Pathfinder box set.
Well, it's really good. If you want to use Savage Worlds for a D&D style game, they give you all the tools you need under the guise of Pathfinder to lay out basically a 3rd edition D&D character in Savage Worlds, right?
Right.
These traits are going to be what a paladin would take. These are the traits that this would take. And because it's Savage Worlds, you can mix and match. So that's
I
good.
wonder how different it is from my Savage Worlds fantasy
Companion?
companion.
I don't know.
But yeah, I owned Savage World for years before I figured out how to play it. And then one day I was talking to somebody and they're like, basically you got a target number and every increment over 4 of that target number gives you better stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, it all clicked. And I immediately was like, shit, I can run Savage Worlds now. I get it. You know, I mean, your
All it
character
takes
has
is
a
one
die
person to-
something and all dice explode. So you got to beat a 5 on your die. Oh, you rolled an 8, roll again. And every increment of 4 over the target number, you get to do even cooler shit.
I've never particularly liked exploding dice. I don't know what it is about that. That always bothered me, that mechanic.
I love exploding dice. I implemented them into an AD&D game one time, and then a couple of game sessions later, immediately took them out at player request.
Now, brace yourself, because I'm about to shock everybody. Because I'm going to bring up Palladium. I like the way Palladium does the exploding die. When you're rolling up a character, if you get a 16 through 18, you roll an additional D6. If that comes up a 6, you roll another 6.
Not in all versions.
Yeah, that's true.
Riffs
Some people
bullshit.
swear
That's some fucking Riffs bullshit right there, buddy.
edition 1, edition 2, even
Yeah.
just the fantasy game is
First
like,
edition, the Palladium role playing game, the first edition one, you only get the one explosion. You don't get two.
yeah, they get
Well,
all
the
other-
editions that I've played,
The chart tops out at 30, right? On anything before Riffs.
yeah,
Unless you count Heroes Unlimited.
I forgot the other free league game I have is the mutant games. So
Oh, Mutant Chronicles?
I
No,
have
Mutant Year Zero. Mutant Year
but
Zero.
No, I'm talking about
Mutant Year Zero. Yeah.
Mutant Years. I have Mutant Year Zero. I have the one with the animals, the humans, and I don't think I got the robots. But I do have the one where it's about the humans that live in like the bomb shelter. Elysium.
No idea.
Basically, everyone's a human, no one's mutated, and you've been living for generations in this giant underground vault. But if your storyteller, whatever, allows, that character can represent someone who got out of the vault, which would give you a basic human with no special powers, but he actually understands technology. So, how you doing, GM Cody? What's up,
love you
bro?
too, babe.
The link is
I love you three,
in the
babe.
thing if you want to jump in. We're just talking about games and plans and whatnot.
Well, I'm going to be bouncing out soon because I'm going live at 8 o'clock. So
Yeah, don't you and Jackie got something you do?
no, that's going to be in 2 weeks because I was at the Claricon all weekend, and they're
How
like,
was
"Oh,
it?
we're going to do this thing." I'm like, "No, it's my first day back from the con. I'm just taking it easy. I'm not doing anybody's bullshit."
Yeah. My wife's a fan of your show now.
Really? Why?
Why not?
Oh, I could list reasons.
Well, I don't know, Stockholm syndrome maybe because I had her in the because we were having to we took the we had to take the cat to the vet. We had to go by another place to take care of some other animals, and then we had to come back home, and your show was on, so I was listening to you. As a matter of fact,
Well, thank you.
yeah, and she had no choice but to listen to your show.
It's okay. It'll wear off. I make a good first impression.
Nah, you're all right, man. Come on.
Now, listen, James, with all the love in my heart, and you know I mean this, you have a level of tolerance that the average viewer does not have. You have
got a
to
point.
appreciate the extremities of this of society in ways the average YouTube viewer does not. And you have one thing that I will give you as a great crown to put upon your dome, which is the ability to have a discussion and sometimes admit when you're wrong or not take it personal.
Well, I'm mostly wrong, so I'm used to that. I married a Danish woman, so I've been pre-programmed to just say you're right. But nah, Bear, I'm glad you got to go and had such a good time. I have to admit that I would have loved to have been there. I even said if I went there, the first thing I'd do is give Bear a big bear hug.
And the second thing you do would be holding your nose going, "Why am I bleeding?"
Oh,
No touching.
You know who I am. I'd be like, but as it were, this Thanksgiving, or my daughter always throws a little Halloween thing. I don't know why, because she knows I don't celebrate Halloween, but she had me go over, so I took it as an excuse to wear my Death Corps Krieg uniform.
Uh-huh.
And I did. And interestingly enough, my granddaughter was not at all afraid of me. She ran up and gave me a hug as soon as I walked in,
Nice.
even though I was wearing the mask. You know, so I was like, okay, she knows who I am. But
She knows who Papa is.
one of my partners from the fire service was there. He left a long time, back because he was too smart to be a firefighter and decided to get into, I don't know, some kind of computer stuff.
What you doing?
But it turns out, Bear, he lives in British Columbia.
Oh, nice. That's only 5,000 kilometers away from me.
I know your country's gigantic.
I might know him. What's his name? Bob?
Steve know him because he lives on an island in British Columbia that you got to take a puddle jumper to get to.
Yeah, it's the one of Fuca Straits. There,
Like when you leave Vancouver, you got to actually there's like ferries and then a puddle jumper. And,
hop out of Horseshoe Bay
he's
and then
not
stop
Canadian,
on
though. He's a born and raised Florida man.
Oh, well, he's as far away from Florida as you can fucking get if he's in the Straits.
But we spent like 3 hours. I pulled my helmet off and just sat in my lap, and we spent like 3 hours just catching up. I was like, man, talking about all the shifts we ran and all the crazy shit. It was really cool, but he's basically doing the snowbird thing.
Oh, yeah, but in reverse.
Spending, summers up there and winters somewhere else.
That's the Canadian way.
But he's doing all right. He's got a quadplex that he owns, and he's going to be renting 3 of the apartments out. And I guess he was complaining, though, a little bit that in that particular part of Canada, rent is very high.
Very high.
So I was like, all right. But he's retired, kicking back. His beautiful wife is still beautiful. So it was a good time.
Good.
And I told him, I said, I spend so much time hanging out with Canadians, you wouldn't believe it. He's like, where? And I was like, on my YouTube channel. And he's like, you got a YouTube channel? And I was like, yeah. He immediately looked me up and he's like, subscribe. I was like, thanks, bro. Nice. But and now he'll see. Every time I do a live stream, there's always at least one Canadian.
I'm feeling targeted by this, and therefore I must immediately post a sternly written letter.
He had nothing but beautiful things to say about Canadians.
We are wonderful but simple people, according to you.
There's nothing wrong with being simple. I grew up with an outhouse, and I was happy. And if you'd asked me about philosophy, I wouldn't have known anything about it. If it wasn't in the Bible, I wouldn't have known nothing. That didn't matter. I was still happy as a clam, running up and down the hills.
So after spending a weekend pretty much in a church and with a reverend, when we were coming back, Slan and I, everything that would go wrong, like, the seatbelt wouldn't attach, my drink fell over, everything. I just went, well, apparently this is what God wants. Who am I to get in the way of what God wants right now? This is what God wants.
When I was
amazing about that, all my stress vanished immediately by just letting Jesus take the wheel.
Jesus got a lot of wheels. He's taken a lot of them. But yeah, when I was very, very, very young, like before my mom married my pops, my grandma would get us up in our best clothes, which were not good at all, and would march all of the kids in a line past the cemetery to the little church up on the hill from the farm. And we would sit there and listen to Fire and Brimstone. And I think they were Pentecostals or Baptists or whatever they were. But, that was like super important to her. And so, even though she was like 4'10" and weighed 90 pounds, she also cooked all the food and everything. So, you didn't want to piss grandma off too bad,
James, do you remember the little sign war that went on between the Pentecostal and the Catholic Church down here somewhere in Florida? For some reason, it was right after that stupid movie came out. The Catholic Church put on, they have those signboards that they change every couple days. Put all dogs go to heaven on their signboard for some reason. And then the Pentecostal church, like in town, like, dogs do not go to heaven. Dogs do not have souls. Then the Catholic Church, like, Catholic dogs have souls. Catholic dogs do not have souls. Convert to Catholicism. Free dog soul. It's like went back and forth for weeks and weeks. And they just
I never seen any of that, but in my
This was
town,
like
we've
10
got
years
like
ago or so.
I
biggest
like that the
church in my
Catholics were the ones
town
with the
is
sense of
a
humor in that
Catholic.
one.
It's
usually
not
the
hard
Catholics
to have
are the
more
ones
of a
that
sense
don't
of
get
humor
the
than the
jokes.
Pentecostals. Those people are nuts.
You know, the
All
Orthodox,
dogs end up in heaven. Cats
the
just go back to
Orthodox
hell.
will technically tell you that animals don't have souls and therefore would not go to heaven. But I was talking it over and I said, well, if I go to heaven and my dogs aren't there, I don't think it would be heaven. And they're like, you make a good point. You know what I mean? Like, so maybe you go into heaven if your version of heaven, or what, we don't know what heaven will be like. But in my version, all of my long lost bestest buddies will be there. Because, and plus God will be there. And I've got questions for that dude. Let me tell you.
Was
Oh
it
my god,
Twilight
this is
Zone
genius. This is
or Outer
ingenious.
Limits?
God loves all his creations, dogs included. Dogs don't have souls. This is not open for debate. Converting to Catholicism does not magically grant your dog a soul. Like, holy shit. Dogs are animals. There aren't any rocks in heaven either.
Rocks.
But the Pentecostals went all in.
Yeah, but they're also, and I'm not trying to be mean to them because, but aren't they also the ones that dance around with snakes sometimes?
No, those snake handlers are actually type Baptist.
Yeah.
So, okay, this is how it ended. So, all dogs go to heaven. Only humans go to heaven. Read the Bible. God loves all his creations, dogs included. Dogs don't have souls. This is not open for debate. Catholic dogs go to heaven. Presbyterian dogs can talk to their pastor. Catholicism does not magically grant your dog a soul. Free dog souls with conversion. Dogs are animals. There aren't any rocks in heaven either. All rocks go to heaven. It's the last of the Catholic thoughts. All rocks go to heaven.
I almost feel bad about the Presbyterians involved because you would think at some point they would stop and be like, these fucking Catholics are just trolling the shit out of us.
Yeah, I mean, how could you, after the third or
At
fourth
some point,
exchange,
you're like,
you're obviously being wound up.
yeah.
But I just, the fact that the Catholics were the one doing the winding is like, that's out of character. Like them having a sense of humor about anything.
No, there was a. I don't know if it was
Fire hydrant in heaven.
Outer Limits or Twilight Zone. Is one of those shows, and basically there's this guy. He's like from the Smoky Mountains. Pick your area, and he was out hunting raccoons or something with his dog, and he and his dog ended up dying.
Well, that's sad.
That was
Yeah,
just
it
the
happens
beginning.
in Appalachia.
Oh, I saw this.
The whole episode is him walking. It's like walking down a path, and he comes across this gate with this guy standing out, and he's like, "Hey, this is heaven. This is where you belong." It's like, "Come on in." Well, his dog was like, "I ain't going in there." Mm-mm. And was growling, backing away, was not going in. And he's like, well, my dog doesn't seem to want to go in. It's like, well, we normally don't let dogs in, but I tell you what, if you come on in here, we can sneak your dog in through the back way. He's like, no, I ain't going. If my dog ain't welcome, I ain't welcome. And he just goes on down the path. And a little bit later, he meets this other fella sitting outside of a gate, just kind of whittling on a piece of stick or whatever. And come to find out, the first one was like the devil, and he trying to get him to go to hell. He's like, dogs don't go to hell. they don't like it. It's the the smell of sulfur and it it's
Plus,
like.
they're good boys.
But he can come on in here. He's more than welcome. Walk right through the front gate. As a matter of fact, we're about to have ourselves a coon hunt. So you and your dog can come on in. And he's like, well, what about my wife? Is whenever she comes up here, is she going to have to? Oh no, your wife's good. She comes straight to the gates here. It's just the devil. He always likes to try to get that last soul in.
Well,
Okay.
true.
Is there a punchline to this joke, or is this just a weird parable from the mountains?
No, this was a Twilight Zone.
It was a Twilight
the
Zone or Outer Limits
Twilight Zone.
episode.
I missed that part at the start. My
Yeah,
apologies.
the guy and his dog were out
all
hunting.
my
They
abuse
died.
and vitriol I take back. Vegas Gandalf, I'm so sorry.
Right. And then the devil tried to trick him, but the dog saved his human because
Right.
he wouldn't go in.
There you go. Now I get it.
Yep. Because you remember back in the day when we had all those, the Outer Limits and the Dark Zone or whatever it was called.
Sure.
Oh man, that's
Tales
back
from
when
the Dark.
TV was good.
Tales from the Dark Side.
Oh yeah,
My favorite though was the Friday the 13th series.
that was actually really good. Where they had to go
A
around and
couple
collect
episodes.
artifacts and shit.
Yeah, they had to go get the archives. And the thing that everybody misses, they're cousins. The guy and the redhead, they're cousins. But they played sexual tension through the whole series. It was like, but they're cousins.
Were they from Kentucky?
Arkansas. No, Alabama. They were Bammer cousins.
Oh, well, there you
Alabama. That's it. Yeah. Okay.
go. In Alabama, I don't think you're allowed to marry past second cousin.
Well, you know
that-
what you call cousins in Kentucky, right?
what?
In Alabama, it's against the law to do reverse cowgirl
Because
because you're not allowed to turn your back on family.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, they call them trainers because that's who you train on to learn how to kiss and stuff.
Ooh.
Just don't have kids, right? I'm from Kentucky and I'm even making the jokes because it's like whatever. Are there inbred bastards down in those deep hollers and shit? Yes, I'm sure
Yeah,
there are.
Dude, are there inbred bastards in those Connecticut blue bloods families? I'm sure there are.
Why do you think the royal families in Europe are so nuts and all?
Yeah, are there inbred families ruling England currently?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Remember the Habsburgs?
Yeah, they're so effed up that the last at Chin was right out here.
Eddie Izzard had that great bit where he was talking about that. He goes, and that's the problem with the royals, right? They're all like, are you a royal? I'm a royal. Okay, we can marry and have kids, which is really good. Except then you get moments where someone says, and meets a royal, and they go, you're a plumber. What is that? Because that's how fucking stupid they've gotten, you know? Because it's like when you breed dogs, the first generation, woof. The second generation, woof. The third generation, ugh.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. That's the reason a lot of pit bulls are so stupid.
Too much
Because
inbreeding.
one, people inbreed them for no good reason, and then two, they train them to be mean. And then when the pit bull is mean and rips someone's face off, everybody's all shocked. It's like you designed this creature to be
To
this
rip
way.
people's faces off. Exactly. Yeah.
This is what you did because my uncle, he raises not inbred American pit bulls, and they are some of the sweetest dogs you will ever meet.
We'll never
But
forget.
I would
Petey.
never buy a pit bull from somebody if I didn't know them and know all about the dog.
Well, never forget Petey on our gang, the Little Rascals. He was a pit.
Yeah,
You know?
it's like they can be some of the best dogs ever, but if you get a bad one, it's really bad. And
I got to go make a cup of coffee, and then I'm going to start my stream up. So, guys, thanks for letting me hang out. And
Good
James?
to meet
time, man.
I fully support your new bold channel venture.
Thank you.
I, look
I
forward
would
to
say
what you
you're.
do with it.
I would
I
say
mean,
you're
oh.
welcome here anytime, but it's not my channel, so I have no say over it.
That's
But-
okay.
but you would just be saying what I always say anyway.
it's just Southern talk as far as I'm concerned. All I heard was "yeehaw, pow, 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 boogity-boo." That's all I heard. So I don't know. I speak Northern. Lovely seeing you all. Hope to see you again sometime. There we go.
All we heard from Bear is "Catch you later, hosers."
Yeah, catch you later, Hoosiers.
Keep your stick on the ice.
Yeah. I'm gonna go get a beer, hoser.
That's about as much Canadian as I know.
Labradors are goodest boys. Golden retrievers are goodest boys. My little Pomeranian, we took him to a party with like 50 people, and he was like the goodest boy. He like let everyone give him a pet, walked around, never barked. Was just, people were coming up to me and commenting on how good my dog was. And they're like, he don't even bark or anything. And I'm like, oh no, he waits till 3 a.m. for that. When I'm laying in bed and he decides to bark at the neighbor because he sees her moving around in her living room through her front window. And he's just like raising out. And it's like, why are you barking at this person? They're in their own house. But anyway. Yeah.
All dogs are good dogs.
That's the lowdown. That's what's going on.
All dogs are good dogs, except for pugs and chihuahuas.
Well, Chihuahuas. What was that?
Are hell's attempt at doing something decent. That's the only explanation for the Chihuahua.
There was a meme that the Chihuahua was invented by the devil.
Yeah.
And every Chihuahua contained the rage of 1,000 men or some shit like that.
Do you remember that Chihuahua from those Taco Bell commercials?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I worked on some of those commercials. That was the nastiest little piece of shit animal. It was bit everybody. It was pissing all over everyone hated that dog. The thing is, it was one of the only Chihuahuas they could find that didn't shake constantly because, they have that, like, the vibration thing.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. And the woman who owned it, I don't think the dog ever walked a step in its life. It was one of those tucked under the arm bastards all the time. Oh, my God. I hated that animal. And
I am not a fan of Chihuahuas, but I do know this. If you ever find yourself in Mexico City, do not in any way ever harm a Chihuahua. You will go to prison forever. And what happens to you in prison will not be pleasant. You will not enjoy it. And it will not be over quickly.
Well,
only certain
I don't plan on getting. I don't plan on leaving Texas ever again.
Yeah, they love their chihuahuas down there, and them little bastards live in sewers and shit. They're like unkillable. You know what I mean? And it's like they're all over the place.
Yeah. Well, they're
all over the damn place, and you will not hurt one. I can tell you that. You lay a bad hand on a chihuahua in Mexico, you are done.
The Egyptians had crazy laws about cats. You'd be put to death if you even inadvertently harmed a cat.
Yep. Well, I mean, they had a goddess.
Yeah, they're divine animals.
Cats.
Well, Cal, if there is a reason, I haven't figured it out yet.
Mexican prisons are not fine resorts. I have an uncle that lives in Saltillo, and yeah, he owns warehouses in Saltillo, which is right across the border, and he rents the warehouses out to industry that wants a warehouse. But he lives far away from the border because he says if you go to Mexico, there's two things you want to do: avoid Mexico City and avoid the border area at all costs. Once you get away from that spot into like real Mexico, he said the people are delightful, do anything for you. But in Mexico City or near the border, you got to deal with gangs. The cops are all crooked. They'll pull you over, and it's like an expectation that you slide them a 20, and then they'll let you go.
Yeah,
I mean,
my only experience of Mexico is Tijuana, and I think I'm good. I don't think I need to go back.
The whole place is just a giant shakedown. But then, see, my pops went down to visit his brother, and they went way out into like real Mexico. And a guy they met invited them into his home, which had a dirt floor. And like his wife made them dinner, and they sat there and talked. And the guy was like just super cool. He, he's a fisherman or something. And my pops told me about that part. He's like, when you meet a real Mexican, like the real hardworking Mexicans that live in the middle of the country, he said they are really good, really great people. But if they live anywhere within 25 miles of the border, forget it. Because, the only people that live up by the border are all involved in bad things. And you don't want any part of that,
There is no reason on earth that I can think of to go into Mexico.
Well, they were
Well, if
building
you're a
a
big
restaurant down
kidnapping
there.
aficionado.
My uncle was building a restaurant down there, and my pops went down to help him. But then the restaurant fell through. So the uncle used the money from selling the land the restaurant was on to buy all the warehouses, which was actually smarter because the warehouses become, what do they call that? Passive income.
Yeah.
Because if somebody leases a warehouse for a year, then what he doesn't have to do anything but collect a check, and he might get it all at once or monthly or whatever, depending on the lease. And whereas a restaurant, that requires you to actually hire people and deal with, overhead, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, right now, the last time I spoke to him, which has been many, many years, most of his warehouses were being leased by Ford Motor Company.
Treacherous bastards.
Yep. Because there are big plants down there that make parts, and then they get stored in the warehouse until a trucker from America comes and gets them and drives them to another place in the United States where the parts are all assembled.
So they can say that they're
And then
made
they
here.
say made in America, but they're not made in America. They're made in Mexico.
If you want a
They're
car that's
assembled in
actually
America.
made by Americans, you're best off buying a Japanese car because all their stuff that they sell here is made here.
Cal, I have worked with Mexicans. When I was 17 years old, I worked on a sod farm. If you know what a sod farm is, And I was the only gringo on that whole place, that whole job site. It was me and Mexicans. And they were the hardest working, proud people, and good to you. You know what I mean? Even though I didn't speak Spanish or anything very well, I could say a couple things, me amo James. They always want to call me homie. But stuff like that, they tucked me right in under their wing. They taught me how to throw sod onto because we had a tractor and it had a big conveyor belt on it. And you throw the sod on the conveyor belt, and then another truck is behind it, and it gets thrown onto the truck. I'll tell you what, though, wore my hands out. Like, I don't know if it was the fertilizer or just grabbing grass all day, but my knuckles and stuff had no skin on them.
Yeah, it's the chemicals. When I worked on golf courses, that would happen because all the stuff they put into the grass there.
I'll tell you what,
Destroyed
dude,
boots.
people
I had to
working that
punch them
job.
really.
I'm sorry, Doug.
No, I had a whole bunch, and I wish I didn't wear them there. I had a bunch of like jump boots I brought back with me from the army. I wore them when I was working there. They got destroyed. And you know what? We would also find like sick, fucked up animals on the course all the time, just from being around all this shit in there. They'd be stumbling around like foxes and raccoons and stuff, just from being around the chemicals and stuff. the thing is, a lot of people don't realize on golf courses, there's like not a blade of grass on a golf course that's more than a year old because they're constantly having to redo the whole thing just because all the shit they put in it to make it look like that.
Yeah, they use that special, really, really fine grass down here.
Yeah, I got fleeced by a sod farm one time. I was managing a landscaping place, and we are doing this guy's something on this guy's property, and he like was this golf fanatic, and he had like a regulation like green on his property, and one of the guys walked across it with a leaf blower and got gasoline on it. And those the thing is about that grass from the tees, like from the greens, that's like like an eighth of an inch high, and you can't just cut grass that short because you'll scalp it. So it takes like years to get it down to regulation height. So like, oh my God, what the hell am I going to do? So I was like, I called the sod farm that specialized in supplying golf courses. Oh my God, that stuff was expensive.
Yep.
Oh my God, it was this like 6 feet of it. I spent nearly a freaking $1,000 between the sod and getting it delivered the next day.
Well, can you
Yeah,
imagine?
I've never worked landscaping myself. I have worked with a lot of Mexicans, and I'll take an old school Mexican over one of these young bucks.
Well, I mean, you live in Texas. Half your state is Mexican.
Yeah.
I live in San Antonio.
Oh, you stole your state from Mexico.
We did not steal the steak from Mexico, sir. We paid for it with blood.
Yeah, it's true. It's not stealing if you conquer it.
Fair enough.
I posted that meme on Discord. It was like, yeah, we didn't steal shit. We conquered it. Cry more, noob. Get good. Of course, they're getting it back. So, I told you I was watching that program up in Kentucky, I guess. It's actually near to Tennessee. The Cherokee bought their own area and they set up their own town, and they've got schools that are teaching the Cherokee language. And then to go down a rabbit hole, I wish Bear was here for this, or Raven. I was watching about Cherokee mythology, and they were talking about the Moon-Eyed people, which were apparently somewhat shorter than Cherokee, but they had white skin, pale eyes, and pale hair, and they only came out at night. But there is archaeological evidence for them, because the Cherokee say that all of the stone structures that have ever been found anywhere in Appalachia were made by these people, because the Cherokee never used stone. And there are literally like castle walls and shit that have collapsed now. And the Cherokee myth is that this was the Moon-Eyed people's, they lived in fortresses to protect themselves because they were not exceptionally good warriors. As a matter of fact, they sucked. And they also tried to just avoid contact whenever they could, which pissed the Cherokee off and made them nervous, because they're like, what's up with these weird bastards not wanting to trade or anything, right?
Yeah.
Long story short, eventually the Cherokee ended up attacking them. And the survivors were said to flee into the caverns, where they may still be, according to the Cherokee. And they were nocturnal and apparently very, very good at creeping about. But yeah, the Cherokee said that when they migrated into the area, they were surprised because they found stone homes that looked like beehives. There was no mortar. It was just stone stacked up with these little entrances, because the Moon-Eyed people had to hide from the sun during the day because they couldn't see real good under sunlight. But when they describe them, they say they were a little bit shorter than your typical Cherokee. They weren't strong at all. They had like spindly arms and legs. They had like pale blue eyes, pale colored hair, white or blonde, and really pale skin. and they would typically hunt under the moonlight, and they were really good at it.
I wonder
But
if there were like some like albino
that's
group.
one of the theories, is they were a tribe of albinos that, you know, the albino that gene become dominant, and so they might still be native. Well, if you listen to the Cherokee, these people are more Native American than the Cherokee are.
Well, there were people here before any of the Indians' ancestors arrived. They found, pre-Clovis culture that was wiped out around the time they showed up. I wonder what happened there.
Right. And these people, some people say they could have been Europeans that just like developed that kind of lifestyle, like that had come over, during before the, what they call it, Androdrias or whatever. Or they might have just been a entirely different kind of people that we just don't know anything about. But regardless, yes, the Cherokee ended up running them off and tearing down a lot of their fortresses that they built. And then in parts of northern Georgia, Tennessee, etc., you can still find the ruins of these stone structures. They may have actually taken some of the females as bride's cow. But the story, according to the elders that was passed down, is that the Moonite people fled underground. And the Cherokee, for their part, pretty much led them. Now, that would make sense in a little bit of a way, even though, like Bear would say, this is getting into woo-woo subjects. The Kentucky goblins were described as spindly armed, pale skinned, big eyes. And they supposedly came out of the caves at night and tapped on the windows of that house in eastern Kentucky back in the 50s or 60s or something. And it started a whole to-do about, are they aliens? What are they? And then it's like, what if they were Moonite people that the Cherokee talked about? I mean, because I've already told you guys, like, no one knows every inch of Mammoth Cave. And people actually did build a town in Mammoth Cave before they understood that you needed vitamin D to survive. So they all ended up dying. But, I mean, that did happen. They thought it'd be good for tuberculosis, but everyone just died anyway. So, I don't know. The ancient Cherokee, they have a lot of stories. Now, one thing that they did say, and they copied this, is the Moonite people never lived in Kentucky, what is now modern day Kentucky. They never lived there. And the Cherokee would only go into Kentucky to hunt and to bury their dead. Something about that eastern part of Kentucky was considered to be holy land, like part of the spirit world almost to the Cherokee, who mostly lived in the Carolinas and Georgia and up like that, Tennessee. So pretty much, I don't know. Could it be true? It could be. Could it be BS? It could be. I mean, we're talking, the narrator in this story is 1,000 years old, at least. Because the story comes down from one elder to the next, from when the first Cherokee tribes migrated into Appalachia and found that there were already people there who lived in stone huts and refused to trade and wouldn't talk to them. Because according to the Cherokee version of the story, they tried like hell for years to make friendly contact, to trade. You know what I mean? Whatever, you know what I'm saying? And these people just wouldn't do it. They would always run and hide, and the fact that they were so isolationist was like tweaking the Cherokee out. because as a tribe, they were so friendly. You know what I mean? Like the
Well,
Cherokee,
they learned their lesson there.
right, right. The Cherokee were like, hey, let's be friends. We can trade, swap wives, whatever. It's all good, right? And these people were like, no. But could some of them married into the Cherokees? Yes. Indians should never be confused with the current Karen tribe, right? The ones that every year take pictures of themselves flipping off Mount Rushmore, as if they didn't completely commit genocide on the tribe that lived there before they showed up. And it wasn't even that long. The Lakota Sioux wiped out the tribe that was there like 50 something years before we showed up and put a beating on them. So it's like, you're saying we stole your land because you stole it from another tribe, except we didn't wipe you all out, but you completely removed that tribe from history.
There's a reason.
Correct me
none of
if
them
I'm
ever
wrong,
speak up.
but I was under the impression that the majority of Indians at the time didn't believe that you could own land.
Yeah, that's a hippie ass 60s lie, the noble savage. They believed you could own land. Look at the Algonquin Confederation. It owned almost the entirety of Canada and most of the northern part of America. And they would go to war at the drop of a freaking hat.
And what was the
Not
name?
only that, grapage was not uncommon. And some of the tribes really, really got off on torture. If you got caught by some of those boys, like Mohawks or something, you were not going to die easy. They'd skin you alive, do all kinds of crazy shit.
Yeah. What was the name of
Every
that?
thing that you think Europeans did, which we did do, they were doing when we showed up. But then some hippies in the 60s come up with this whole, they were peaceful and didn't believe you could own land, and they believed in the great Wakantanka, the great spirit. And it's like, well, some did, and some worshiped snake gods, and others worshiped all kinds of crazy shit. And we know for a fact the Anasazi in the Southwest were eating other tribes until the other tribes all ganged up and wiped them.
I mean, but here's my thing. I mean, Indians were hunter-gatherers. They followed the game.
And they were incredibly inefficient. They would run a whole herd of buffalo over a cliff, and then they would butcher 2 of them and leave the rest to rot because they didn't have refrigeration or the capacity to make that much jerky or pemmican. They almost wiped the buffalo out before we showed up. And then we really almost wiped them out. But yeah, think about the
We were just more efficient at it than they were.
But in your region of Texas, right, you had Comanche in northern Texas. They were slavers, grapists, murderers. They were powerful, and they owned a huge chunk of land. And if you effed around with the Comanche, boy, they were coming for that ass. And then the Apache were so bad that their name literally means enemy in the language of every tribe around them. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
But for my mom used to be that way before I disarmed her of her misconceptions.
Then you had the Iroquois in the Northeast, who were straight up conquerors. They kicked the shit out of everybody anywhere remotely near them.
Yeah, the Iroquois, which were the leaders of the Algonquin Confederation, because it's not okay. There is an Algonquin tribe, but it's a linguistic group, the Algonquin language, because the Chippewa are part of that. And yeah, oh boy, before we showed up, the Mohawks and the Seneca and the Creek and all that, they were going at it. Let me tell you. You ever seen those big ass sticks they carry, those war clubs and shit? They weren't killing deer with those. I live on Algonquin land Well, it's Canadian land now, unless you live on a reservation. Right.
Well, I know
And
that I
just
do
like
know
if you
that there
listen
were. I
to-
can't think of the names of the two tribes, but there was like one tribe that was getting eaten by another tribe, and then
Well, the
Columbus showed up.
Anasazi were straight up cannibals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of the Caribbean and Central American ones were straight up freaking.
Oh yeah, that like when Christopher Columbus landed on that first island, the Taino tribe came to him and begged him to help them defend themselves from the cannibal tribe that lived on the other half of the island. So Christopher Columbus and his Spaniards rolled over there and killed them all because they were cannibals and inhuman sacrifice and all this crazy shit. And the Taino were like, we love the Spanish. And you know, Christopher Columbus wrote that he told his men not to take advantage of those people in any way, treat them good, and supposedly they did. But there's a Spaniard 100 years after Christopher Columbus died that hated him, and he's where all of the negative bullshit about Christopher Columbus comes from. He basically did this character assassination book back in the 15 whatever.
Yeah,
Christopher Columbus was not running amok in the Caribbean like people say. He didn't have enough men to. Like, take out one tribe on some small Caribbean island, maybe, but, you know, he's not going to land on Puerto Rico and whip all the Boricua. I mean, he's only got, what, 80 men? You know, versus thousands of Boricua Indians? Yeah, that shit wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that there were never any serious attempts of any of these tribes to like band together and protect themselves like from the invading white man, because their real enemies are each other. They were way more interested in getting us to help them settle disputes between one another. To
Well,
ever
that's
stop
how,
taking-
Cortez, was it?
yeah,
That's
to
how
think about
Cortez
all-
took
yeah.
down the Aztec Empire. Is he sent men to all the tribes that lived near him, and they cooked up a big confederation of alliances. And so while there might have been 180 Spaniards in that war, there were like tens of thousands of other natives that were all dead set on destroying the Aztecs. Once and
Yeah,
for
the
all.
Aztecs were not popular. You know, when you like
Well,
make a point of cutting people's hearts out every day to make the sun
yeah,
come up.
when a
Well,
whole part of
whenever
your
you-
culture is still
look,
people
whenever
holding
you
on
go
and
and you fight a group of people and you take their heads and play basketball with it, you kind of get a certain reputation.
Hey, but to be fair, they had a good run. They had a good run. And the Aztecs were bullied out of where they originally came from by another tribe. And when they were small and weak, they were forced to live in the swamps to kind of, because no one else wanted it, right? But then they developed the idea of weaving reeds to make artificial like gardens that, and they developed the idea of driving pylons so that you could actually build stone structures in a swamp. And they got more and more powerful, and they started conquering neighbors.
They said I was crazy to build a castle in a swamp.
Right. The Aztecs were geniuses. They had a good run. They ran out of wherever they originally come from by another stronger tribe. And some people, this would be a Raven thing, a Raven McMinn thing, think the Anasazi were the survivors of the Aztec Empire that managed to make it to Texas and New Mexico and that region. And that's why they were cannibals still, because the Aztecs are straight up cannibals.
Mm.
The first time they met the Spaniards, they cooked one of their own children and presented it as the centerpiece of a feast to the Spaniards. You know how well that went over with
I'm a
those
vegetarian,
Roman
thank you.
Catholics. They're all like, we'll stick
What
to
about a nice paella?
I mean,
and then what's the other tribe I always
normally
thought
I'm an
was-
omnivore, but I've been leaning towards the vegetarian.
Well, there was other things there. armadillos and fruit and tons of other stuff. But one of the things was
Freaking armadillos. And we still have leprosy in this country because morons insist on eating armadillos.
yeah. Okay, who am I thinking about that lives in the Southwest? They're a big tribe. Damn it.
Apache.
No. Navajo? Navajo. Yeah, the Navajo we now know migrated from the Arctic. Like, and I don't mean came across the bridge. I mean, they lived there for a long time and then said F it, and they went south and lived there for a while and then said F it and kept going. And eventually they ended up in that area where they are. And they're like, yeah, this is good. And that's why
I don't get the tribes that stayed in the Arctic Circle. I mean, like, yeah, this is good. This is fine.
Well, think about like this: if you're an Inuit or one of those other tribes up there, Kikuks or whatever, nobody's effing with you, man. You do not have to worry about being invaded by any neighbors, because I mean, nobody's going up there. Like, you know, yeah, and that's why in the Navajo myth they talk about coming from the first world and then moving through the second world until they finally made it to their homeland. And they say that those worlds were underground, but archaeologists say that that was a misspeaking of them. They actually just came from way up north. And they talk about as they went through each area as like a different world that they traveled through. But very interesting. Personally, even though it turns out I have no native blood in me, even though I was lied to my whole life and told that my grandma was 100% Cherokee, I have been inside of some Indians, though. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
I got some chores I got to take care of.
You go take care of those chores.
So I'm going to pop out. And if you're still on when I'm done, I'll pop back on.
We'll see.
Later, you goblin.
I have deep respect for a lot of the native tribes, and some of them not so much. Like the Lakota Sioux, not so much. They were a bunch of scumbags. They were basically the bandits of the plains. It's like if you wandered into their area, they were going to steal everything you owned and probably torture you to death.
Yeah, the Pawnee were known for being pretty nasty.
The Kiowa were so terrible they got wiped out. Freaking, you know. So, James, now that you've said a lot of flaws of some American Indians, real or imagined, who are the worst horrible savages who were divided with much infighting? What's your point? I don't understand the question.
Not sure I get what he's getting
Yeah,
at.
I don't understand. Are you like offended? Because everything I'm saying is true. But
all
then
tribal societies are incredibly violent. Yeah,
but what I just said is that some of them were in many ways very amazing too. Like the Cherokee, who had a written language and freaking, you know, were practically on par with the Europeans when they encountered each other. Or the Chippewa or the Ojibwa, who do all their fishing up in Lake Michigan and Superior. They were amazing people. But pretty much it's like this. If you look at the New World, the further west you go, the more horrible the natives get. It's like if you're on the East Coast, they're all pretty good. You know what I mean? They're all like, okay, whatever. The further west you go, the more bloodthirsty they get. So, you know Professor Jeff Rigby? He is an expert in Indian cultures of America, among other studies. He's an anthropologist. Never heard of him. But the Navajo were from way up and known as head pounders. Yeah. I know what I know about the Navajo culture, Cal, is I read their mythology, which was eventually toughed down from the words of their elders. And they talk about coming up through the different worlds, and like it's super interesting. And I've said that multiple times. In role-playing games, everyone always wants to use Northern European deities, like West Northern European. So, whatever, England, Ireland, Scandinavia. But if you get into the mythology of some of the tribes that lived in America, they are freaking crazy, like insane. And some of the monsters they believe in are absolutely terrifying. Like
Oh yeah,
all of
that's
the
some crazy
northern
beasties.
tribes, they believed in a type of a monster that was like a mix between a wolf and an orca. So it could come up on land or go into the water. Well, negativity, look, Prime, it's not negative if it's true. It can't be negative if it's the truth. But I mean, look at how the Wendigo has completely permeated American society.
Yeah.
And that was a creature that was only known to like the Algonquin.
Yeah. And nobody's, I mean, particularly picking on them. I mean, all primitive tribal societies are incredibly violent. Look at European, like the Celts and the Germanics.
Yeah, the Celts
They're absolute
literally
murdering
sacrificed-
maniacs.
The ancient Irish Celts sacrificed 1 out of every 10 children born each year to a demon. I mean, if you're being offended for some reason, or you think I'm presenting information in a biased way, then ask a question. Ask me to compare a tribe. Like when everyone was saying orcs are black people, I was saying they remind me of Germans or Celts. The way they live, they roam about, raping and pillaging everything. Well, guess what? Every Northern European tribe did that. As a matter of fact, the orcs would be more advanced than most African tribes, excepting maybe the Ethiopians, who were always a very advanced society, and also may have been the first Christians. Some people owe you some child sacrifices, Kyle. Yeah, Crom Cruach, Conan Crom. Crom Cruach was a god in Ireland, and every year, everyone who had had a child in that year, and remember the Celts had 13 months, would go to the priest of Crom Cruach, a druid, and they would all be forced to pick a stone from a bag. And if you picked a black stone, the druidic priest would grab your child by his ankles and swing him so that his head would hit the stone altar of Crom. And then they would just drop him and leave him there. So when St. Patrick finally encountered Crom Cruach, it was this giant stone, like plinth, surrounded by skeletons of all the children over, hundreds upon hundreds of years. I mean, do you need me to say bad stuff about my own people in order for you to not be offended about me saying bad stuff about another group? Yeah, the Slavs.
Well, and the other thing,
a god of evil, Chernobog.
it's far more dehumanizing, I think, and degrading to fucking Indians to fetishize them and pretend that they're these like silly, like fairy people.
And everyone knows the only fairy people that lived in America are called the Nanahi, and they lived in the Kentucky mountains.
That
And also
so
in
wrong, and everything was great and wonderful, and like, and then it's this backhanded white supremacy of left.
It's soft racism.
That's like, it's only bad if Europeans do it. Doesn't matter
Right.
if everybody did something, but Europeans are the ones who don't have an excuse. Because all you're saying when you make these arguments, like how much better you think you are than everybody else.
Well,
It's
I'm
like-
not going to lie. I love
Mike
my
Wilson.
culture.
Oh,
and I think
absolutely. We're
bad-
awesome. We've done nothing but cool shit. Well, we've done some shitty shit,
I
but
mean, I accept the fact that my
Well-
culture, going way back, regardless of which part of my culture we're talking about, did some heinous shit. I mean, Vikings were known for human sacrifice.
the Vikings were psychopaths.
Yeah, they're psychopaths.
People on ice.
Like if they were going on a long journey, they would sail away from the land and then they would chuck a tied up slave overboard because they thought by sacrificing the slave, it would protect them from the goddess of the ocean, who apparently was a bitch. Heavy personal responsibility to scholarly makes a case. I'm just telling you what I know from reading and growing up in the region, right? Like I'll tell you another thing you probably didn't know. The Trail of Tears, it wasn't the Cherokees crying. It was the white people that lived alongside them that cried to see them treated that way. You probably never heard that. But most of the people who lived in Appalachia at that time had very good relations with the Cherokee. Intermarried with them, traded with them, farmed with them. They were not a bad group of guys. And the last group of guys to surrender during the Civil War. The Cherokee Rifles, who fought for the Confederacy, were the last unit to finally lay down arms. And they're proud of that shit to this day. You know?
And down here in Florida, we got the Seminoles, the last tribe that has to this day not surrendered to the U.S. government. They do not recognize.
Yeah, how many wars did the U.S. fight against the Seminoles? Like a lot. No matter which bizarre details about history you want to tell, no matter which culture, what? I think you're Grognard. I think you're. I don't know what you're doing, honestly, bro. You're confusing the shit out of me. Is what you're doing. I mean, if you have something to add to the conversation, go ahead. But trying to police speech, or I mean, if I'm saying wrong things, tell me no, that's not how it went. It went like this. Whereas it turns out when I talked about the Navajo cow, who apparently knows some dude who's got special training, was like, yeah, dude's right. Now, I didn't know that anthropologically or whatever, I was right. I knew that that they had
This is throwing out the place for tax. This has never been a tax central location.
I mean, I just knew their myths because I was way more interested in Navajo mythology than I was in their actual history. So when I found out they originally came from the far north, I was like, wow, that's neat. That explains why they talk about coming from, the world of monsters and then going to the world of whatever, and then finally this world and finally finding a home,
Monsters, Canada.
Right. Yeah, Northern Canada. But I don't know, Grognard, are you an American? Because if you're not an American, then I get it. I understand everything you're saying. You appreciate tact. That's called speech policing. And no one's got time for that. That's the kind of shit Karens do. When you say something that's true and they get mad because it's not what you said, it's how you said it. And it's like, you don't get to tell me how to speak. I don't know why that's the same reason people bitch about Donald Trump. I don't like Trump because he's crass. Well, guess what? He's a New Yorker. Hey, I hate to do some freaking I hate to make stereotypes, but he's a New Yorker. So guess what? He's going to be crass. He's also a guy, people are like, he's a loser. His dad gave him $1 million when he was a kid. Yeah, now he has multiple billions of dollars. So you're going to try to tear down the fact that the guy's a self-made billionaire, but he got a startup up and whatever.
The thing that really drives me crazy about, like, especially when the pussy
You have
grabbing
your point of
comment
view,
came up,
I have
which
mine.
people lost their minds that he made a rude comment about groupies throwing themselves at celebrities, which is completely true. But they're perfectly quick to forgive the likes of Bill Clinton and freaking our current president, who are like serial rapists and pedophiles.
Well, because, and this is the one reason I actually posted this, and Razor Fist, I think, answered the post. I was saying the worst thing about the American left is the complete lack of consistency. It's like there's no consistency there.
Well, because it's all just a power game. That they don't believe in objective truth. It's just what gets me my way.
No, speech policing is when you tell somebody the way they say things is whatever. And it's like, nope, 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 nope. And you brought it up multiple times, Prime. And I'm not trying to, like I said, it appears to me like it's pretty obvious you're not American, which I'm cool with because like my number 3 country for viewership is Russia. So if you're a Russian, привет, but yeah, literally every single piece of information I've gave you that was not mythology is a fact. I prefer my criminals to be consistent. By consistency, I just mean don't be hypocrites. I mean, don't yell at one guy for doing something that your dude did a year before and then try to gaslight the world into thinking he didn't. It's like they're constantly trying to make hay out of the fact that Epstein went to a Trump party at Mar-a-Lago, even though Trump didn't know the guy. But then ignore the fact that Clinton flew to the island like a dozen times.
16.
And we know for a fact that he did.
Ditched his Secret Service agents to do it.
Right. And it's just like, how can you? I just don't understand people that are so hypocritical. But to quote one of my favorite politicians of all time, RFK, we're not dealing with the Democrats of his dad or his uncle or any of that, or my grandpa's Democrats, that were always right there in Eastern Kentucky fighting to keep those coal mines open so that people wouldn't starve to death. We're dealing with the Democrats that are like, close the coal mines and all of these coal miners can learn to code. And it's like, what?
And then when all the journalists started getting laid off and they threw that back at them, all of a sudden that was...
And then they start getting banned because Twitter's full of shitheads back in the day. I don't like politicians in general either. And I especially, in addition to not liking politicians, I don't like people who are appointed to positions of high office with no accountability for what they do. Like whoever drone striked Afghanistan a couple of years back and killed 15 kids, how did he not get fired at the minimum? Not the pilot of the drone, the guy who okayed the mission. How is General Milley not being held up on treason charges? He admitted he was committing treason, right? And that's why they're so terrified, because if Trump gets into office, some of these people may be forced to answer for some of the shit they did.
Yeah, that would be nice. It would be nice to see accountability for once.
Right. Especially if they make Elon Musk like the head of the Department of Government Efficiency and he just starts firing people.
And I love how they're going, oh, he's going to throw all these people in jail. He's going to, well, you mean like kind of like you're doing right now as we speak?
Well,
and,
that's the other problem with the left, and they did this in Russia in 1916. They always accuse their enemies of doing the shit they do.
Shit they're doing.
Always. They talk about how the Tsar was such a horrible human being. Meanwhile, they were the ones doing all the horrible shit. You know? So, whatever. But anyway, yeah, the Native American cultures, they had some really interesting monsters. It's unfortunate that we live in a day and age where no one would make an actual like source book like they did in the 80s, Mastica or whatever, because you'd get
the shit fit that would
you
come
get
out of that.
slaughtered. It's the same reason where you would never see a source book for Africa, because if you wrote up a D&D source book for Africa and you didn't make every single tribe in that source book like the most enlightened, intelligent, glowingly awesome group of people on the planet, they would eat you alive. They really would. They would. I mean, you would. It just would be really ugly, right?
Yeah, there'd be no getting around it, no matter how you presented it.
Yeah.
There'd be something wrong with it. And
They went after Mike Pondsmith for shit he said and called him a racist on Twitter. And it's like, you guys know Mike Pondsmith's a black guy, right? No, they didn't know, because they're a bunch of idiots. They're a bunch of followers. Somebody said something and they all start dogpiling Pondsmith. Because in one of the editions of the book, he says that what caused America to fall apart was uber balkanization, and he might not have even wrote the thing. It was just in the book. And people posted that he said that. This is years ago, but look, it's not wrong. And so the typical white liberal Karen chicks on Twitter back then started going after Pondsmith and calling him all the names. And it was a great pleasure for people like me and others to point out that Mike Pondsmith is a black man who grew up in Los Angeles. And it's like, don't really think he's white supremacist, even though some of them argued he still was. Because, you know, there's always that one group of idiots that think black people can be white supremacists.
Yeah, that's really amazing.
Yeah.
And then, do you remember what happened to? Oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. He ran for governor in California when they had the recall election.
Oh, Larry Elder.
Larry Elder. Yeah,
And purple haired
with the gorilla mask, throwing eggs at him, making like monkey noises.
Yeah.
And that was perfectly fine. Nobody had a damn word to say about that.
No one had a word to say about it, because if you're not on the plantation, then their umbrella of protection is removed. Her grandfather killed a lion. You know, Cal, when I was like 16, my biggest dream was to move to Africa. I used to dream about it. I used to I don't know what I wanted to be, but I know I wanted to live in Africa. I felt like this pull to this day. I don't know if I could get a tour to go to Africa and see Mount Kilimanjaro and stuff like that, I would do it. Not to hunt, because I mean, I can kill all the deer I want in Kentucky, but and I would avoid Congo and South Congo like the freaking plague.
Odd.
Did you hear about that? I think she was Norwegian or Swedish woman. She like worked for some multicultural whatever in Sweden. She went to the Congo. They beheaded her.
Yeah, I don't get these like middle class like white chicks who decide they're going to like go to the worst place in the world. Like, oh, everybody's the same. People are just people, and I'll show you. And they get like horribly freaking mutilated, like something out of a damn Texas.
The two Scandinavian girls up in Morocco, and they ended up finding them up the mountain, beheaded after they'd been, of course, raped and tortured. but they thought, you know, everybody in the world was like the Swedes. And it's like, it turns out people are not like that. One of my top 5 most beautiful women I ever met in my entire life, Kyle, was from somewhere in Africa. I told you the story. I worked with her at the Gaylord Palms Hotel or whatever, and she was absolutely statuesque and perfect. Like physically, everything. Beautiful. Just, and I don't even, unlike my brother, I generally don't date black women. Hungar, that's all he dates or used to. But so when I see somebody that's not, you know, my type, and I'm like, oh my God, she looks like a goddess. I mean, I remember it. And that's been 20 years, and I still remember. I'd never seen any woman. Well, no, I'd seen a couple, but she's definitely top 5 the most perfect women I've ever seen. But I'm not sure where she was from, though. I never really asked, but she spoke English. So maybe Kenya, Nigeria, somewhere like that. I don't know. But she was the blackest chick I'd ever seen, too. She was black as my frickin' black primer. I mean, you know what I mean? She was not chocolate colored or brown or any of that shit. This girl was black. But she had sharp features. She didn't have the wide typical nose. Her nose was, you know, and like it looked like they took Athena and just painted her black. That's what this girl looked like. You know what I mean? It was crazy. Maybe she was Maasai or something. I don't know. People seem to forget that Africa is like a huge continent with like hundreds of cultures and as many, if not more, languages. You know what I mean? It's like the American way of thinking. We're just like Africa. It's like, first off, North Africa, north of the Atlas Mountains, may as well be part of Europe. And south of there are so many countries and tribes and whatever that like you could spend your entire life trying to study Africa and still never scratch the surface. And I think that's what drew me to it. You know what I mean? I would have been that guy walking around with a hunting rifle, married to some tribeswoman, if I'd followed through with that dream, but instead I joined the army. So, you know, and I saw enough of the world in the army to know I didn't want to go anywhere else. Probably from just south of the Sahara. I don't know where she was from, because you know how you can spot a Somalian in a crowd like nobody's business. Somalis are easy to spot, but this woman was just perfect. Absolutely perfect. I don't know where she was from, but she did speak English with a British accent.
I just got the message. Dinner's ready, so I'll be continue later, man.
Okay.
Glad
Yeah,
to see you back. Was worried there for a little bit. Good luck on the rebuild.
oh yeah. I think it's going to be awesome. Actually, I gained 9 followers after I deleted all my videos. I don't know how I should take that.
Neat trick. I will
It's
catch you
like
later, everybody in chat.
later. There's like 9 people out there decided after I deleted all of my videos, that's when they wanted to follow me. Yeah, I kind of guess I did fancy myself an Alan Quartermain, you know, one of those guys that was, you know, guiding people about places in you know, the middle of Africa and exploring and go. You know, there's 2 places in the whole world where you can see a rainbow at night. They're called moonbows. One of them is Kilimanjaro, Africa, and the other one is Kentucky at the Cumberland Falls. The only 2 places in the entire world you can see a rainbow in the middle of the night. Yeah, they're very distinct. You can tell. Like when you see those guys, you can tell. Off-grid gaming. I hope Trump defeats Kamala. Yeah, I guess when you're young, you're right, Kyle. You probably did it too. I think you and I are about the same age. You didn't know that about the moon bows? The only reason I know it is because I've been to the Cumberland Falls, because it's like 45, no, more like an hour drive from where I live. And my Rodinia, as we would call it. And there's a big sign that says one of two places and goes in. You know how it is when you go to a state park. They explain shit. So if you go to the Cumberland Falls on a night when you're going to have a really bright moon, you'll see the moon bow. And apparently the other place is Kilimanjaro, Africa. So, yeah. But I mean, that just goes in line with what I'm always telling you guys about how the Commonwealth of Kentucky is literally the best state, whatever, in all of the whole union. And everyone who gets to live there is fortunate. I just wish we could give Louisville to Ohio. That would make the state a lot better if we could just slide Louisville across the river. But, you know, because like everything, Louisville has the population, so they dominate politics. Right. That could be the thing. I've tried Ethiopian food. It's spicy, and it's basically just a bunch of almost like think of a dish full of types of hummus and flatbread, except it's not hummus, but it's basically pastes. So, you know, you're sitting there and they bring the big dish out and it's got all the flatbread and it's got all the different pastes that you dip the bread in. Pretty spicy, not terrible, not something I would go out of my way for. And it's not because of the spice. I mean, I love a good vindaloo as much as the next guy, but it was something interesting to do. But I mean, my favorite food, like if I go out and my wife's like, we can go wherever you want, almost every time I will pick a Greek restaurant. I love Greek food. Absolutely. Just that's where I want a vacation. If my wife and I ever get our shit together, I would love to get my passport situated and go on vacation to Greece. Caprese, I think, is where I want to go. The one that's white with all the white and blue buildings. And just spend a week, you know, on that ancient soil, you know, where so much happened there, you know. It like, anyway, yeah, I am at a loss for words. I want to go to Greece, and I want to take a tour one day to see Moscow and St. Petersburg so I can visit all of the cathedrals. Have your Patton moment. Yeah, exactly, right? Except I would be more like Rimmer. Do you remember Alexander the Great? I was his chief eunuch. Freaking, I don't know if you guys know Red Dwarf, but Red Dwarf. There's a cultural subject of all out balls crazy religious zeal. Oh, Greece? Oh, Prime, dude. I love Appalachia. It is the greatest place ever, and we are the best people ever. And if you're proud to be an American, you're welcome. because you guys were losing the Revolutionary War before we got involved and come across the mountains and whip the shit out of the English in the Carolinas. But there's some creepy ass shit in Appalachia. And remember, those are some of the oldest mountains on the planet. I mean, the Cherokee talk about Nunahee spirits and the moon-eyed people, like I already talked about at length. And well, who even knows what could be in these caves? You know what I mean? And also, when you get down in those deep, dark hollers, could there be feral people? I wouldn't doubt it. Could there be dog men? Wouldn't doubt it. I mean, so yeah, there's good and bad. The bad for my part of Kentucky is there's a lot of meth heads, but they don't come to the area I live because every time they move in, their trailer burns down. So, you know. I just got in the Sons of Crom and Plague Devils. I put the link in there just to refresh it. You know, I'm actually feeling very talkative tonight, but again, I think it's because we didn't have a game last night and I was bummed out like all night because we used to game every week and it really is kind of like many people will tell you, it is my social outlet because during the course of the week, since I'm retired, I rarely go anywhere. I'll have to look that up, Cal, but Cal's always selling me miniatures that I don't need. I gotta watch that guy. But so yeah, having to go without that outlet was like not cool. You know what I mean? I was all like, WTF? Because I was, you know, I'm so used to the weekly game and seeing, you know, we got like 8 or 9 players and you know, it's like, okay, here's something I remember that's an authentic Appalachian child toy, lumberjack doll dancing. I never had anything like that. I do know that my grandpa carved me a tank out of cedar wood once for Christmas. And I do know that we did go to square dances because my grandfather could pretty much play anything with strings on it. So, and he was part of a bluegrass gospel band. And that would be fun because, you know, everybody in the area would show up with some dish or other. And people would be up all night dancing. And that's kind of where a lot of people, I think, would end up meeting their future wives and stuff. You know, because it would be a bunch of people not related to you that showed up. But that would be like 70 something in the deepest, darkest heart of Appalachia, you know, way up in those mountains. Like I said, I live a 15-minute drive or so from Black Mountain, which is, I think, the tallest mountain in Appalachia. If you can call them mountains, because let's be honest, those mountains are billions of years old. And they've been worn down so much. So they're not like the Rocky Mountains that are all jagged and super tall and stuff because the Rocky Mountains are new, you know, but Appalachians, they're old. And if you want to talk about moon-eyed people or whatever, I mean, there's a chance, you know. I mean, I've seen some weird stuff when I was there as a kid. Which is why, unless I'm on my own property and armed, I don't go anywhere without friends and armed in those woods. And that's also why I said Gary Gygax saying you get lost in woods on a 2 and 6, I think is coddling, because your actual chance of getting lost in Appalachia, if you're not on a trail and you're just cross countrying it, is probably 50-50, maybe more. And that is why in that particular video, I went off in freaking OCD detail about how every adventuring group that plans on going into the wilderness should have a ranger or a barbarian, or they're pretty much just doomed from the start. Yeah, we got mountain lions up there too. What is it? They're the hillbillies call them catawampus or something like that. A catawamp. It's a cougar basically, but according to the mythology, they have 6 legs. But that's an old Indian tale. We got bears too. I posted pictures. If you go into the post, you'll see where I posted the pictures of the bears. They were little, though. I'm pretty sure I might have been able to whip one of their asses. Yeah, maybe what I'm talking about is in Kentucky, but it's not 6,000 feet. I know that. I think it's closer to 4,500. It's like a caterwaul is what the old hillbillies call them. But that's just what they call mountain lions. But the Indians believed that they had 6 legs and like nothing could outrun them. So, a high fantasy world with like light stones from Lord of the Rings. Yeah. Because I'm telling you, I'm telling you from, hand to whatever, from growing up in that region and being there just a couple months ago. Once you go down into the holler, yeah, you don't know. And if you start following those hollers, you don't know where you're going to go because they wind. And now you take that, whereas today, if you're pretty solid and you got some water or you're not afraid of drinking out of a creek, you probably are going to be okay, right? But put that in a fantasy dark age world, that region, it would be a death sentence. And I mean, honestly, back when it was part of Virginia in the 1700s, it was a death sentence for a lot of people. A lot of people who left Williamsburg, colonial Williamsburg, Virginia, to go across the mountains into what was now Kentucky, lots of those dudes died, starved to death, got lost, whatever, I mean, so yes, if you're putting together a Dungeons and Dragons party, no matter what edition of D&D you are playing, for the love of all that is holy, if no one else is playing a ranger, you play a ranger. Because if you go into the woods and your DM is from Appalachia and knows how those deep forests are, you're probably going to die. And that's before you even throw in every monster you might encounter in there, right? I mean, you got to remember those deep woods where there's caves everywhere. Every single cave could have some tribe of humanoids in it, just waiting to eat some man flesh, So not only is the terrain dangerous, you could trip off of a rock that you didn't see because of the heavy leaf fall, break your freaking knee. But on my 30-acre property, there's at least 5 caves. And that's not counting the abandoned coal mine that, is all boarded up. So now let's say within a 30-acre area, deep in the mountains, there could be 5 tribes of humanoids, be they kobolds all the way up to ogres, alive in that region. And you're wandering through that region with no ranger, no compass, trying to guide yourself by the sun or some stupid shit, which you can't even see half the time. Because when you go down into a holler, you can't see the sun. Yeah, you combine these two aspects together into D&D, and that's how a lot of first and second level adventures end up spitted and roasted over a fire. Oh, yeah, yeah. And now, yeah, you take Shark, you take the forest, which is already a thing, and then throw it onto a freaking up and down hills and mountains. Another nickname for Kentucky, we call it, where I'm from, is we call it God's Rock Garden. And if you looked at the pictures I posted, one thing you guys would notice is me taking pictures of rocks the size of Volkswagens. They're just laying on the side of the hill, just sitting there. You know, I leaned up against one and caught my breath a little bit when I was going up the top, but and then there's rocks under the leaf that you can't see. So if you're not careful with how you're walking, yeah, you could absolutely twist an ankle, blow a knee out, tear an ACL or some shit like that. And then if a quarter of a mile away, there's a tribe of goblins living in a cave, you are especially completely effed. You know, and if there's not, and you can't drag yourself home, well, 3 days later, you'll die of dehydration. And then the coyotes and everything else will eat you and scatter your bones all over the damn place, and they'll never find you. And that'll just be that. You'll be just one more person who went missing somewhere in Appalachia. And believe me, it happens a lot more than you would be comfortable with. Oh, the black bear encounter. I was driving down the street and the bear was standing on the side of the road. And we were on the road driving. The bear's just standing there. So I just took some pictures of him. I don't know what he was doing. He's just walking around. I mean, I've ate bear before. One thing I will tell you about eating a bear is you want to grind it up into hamburger meat. And then when you eat it, you want to eat it in heavily seasoned things like chili, maybe curries, something like that. Because bear by itself or cooked with a little salt and pepper, it doesn't taste great. And you're not going to eat bear steaks because most of the time they're just tough and stringy and just not really enjoyable to eat. So, you know, you grind them up. You can make sausage out of them, but you're going to add pork fat to it. Just like if you make sausages out of venison, you always got to add pork fat. Otherwise, because the venison's so lean, it won't turn into sausage. It'll just turn into crumbly meat in a casing. And that's not what you're after. You know what I mean? But I agree with you, Prime. And I think if I were to go into the forest again, well, I was in it a month ago. Now I was where is it? Here. I always keep it near me. I had this on me. Of course, I had it holstered. And for those of you who don't know, this is my G19 Gen 4. Chambered in 9mm because, I don't know, I'm not special. I really don't give a damn about 45. Clear it. This is totally cleared now. So I had this on me with a couple of good magazines. And the thing that scares me the most, also, it's got all these cool extra grips in case you need it, but I don't. And I've got my rounds up here. I typically use just standard Full Metal Jacket, FMJ. Animals are not what scares me in the woods. That's what I'm telling you. Like a bear would not scare me in the woods, right? As a matter of fact, I would probably give the bear a hug and tell him I'm sorry that all the purple-haired women want to spend time with me, because that sucks, bro. You know, no one should have to do that. But all joking aside, and a panther, I mean, unless it's got babies or starving, you know, a cougar or a mountain lion ain't gonna mess with you really. And even if it wants to, all you really got to do is keep eye contact and back away. You'll be all right. You know? Now, if that doesn't work out for you, I don't want your parents suing me. I'm just saying that's my experience. Do not run from a mountain lion. The second you run, you're done. But when we're talking Eastern Kentucky, down in those deep old hollers, you don't know what kind of people you're going to run into. And SC, yeah, exactly. It's the people that make me nervous. Like if I'm out in the middle of the Daniel Boone National Forest somewhere and I wander up on somebody, I mean, is it a serial killer? Is it somebody with a meth lab out there? Is it some kind of Satanist? Because we have a hardcore Satanist problem in parts of southeast Kentucky. Who knows? And yeah. Oh yeah, I got my 12 gauge. I've got 870 tactical. I love that thing. Which, I mean, not that I'm anti-gun, because you guys all know I'm not. I'm a huge proponent of our Bill of Rights. But if I had to pick one firearm, only one, in a apocalypse situation, I'd take my 870 every day of the week over everything else I got. And the reason is because it's such a all around just decent weapon. It may not be as good as, say, my Remington 700 for long range shooting. It may not be as good as my AK-74 if I got to do some CQB or something. But, you know, you can just about do anything with a good 12 gauge. You can take a deer down. You can take pheasants and rabbits, you know, and yeah. Oh, you're not Cal. Come on, Cal, you know. And that's exactly it, off grid. It's just like mine has the attachment on the stock that holds an extra 8 rounds, and you can put whatever you need in there. And if you're worried about whatever, I mean, you can always stack them up. You can put like birdshot, then a slug, birdshot, then a slug, right? That's I would say for home defense, the first one, the birdshot's to find them, and then the buckshot or the slug is to put them down. But yeah, if I had to be trapped in the woods with one firearm and say 100 rounds, it'd be that Remington 870 every time. Just because, I mean, now, before anyone thinks I'm one of those crazy AK guys, I'm not. That doesn't mean I don't love my AK. I love my AK. I had 2 of them, but Hungar's got one. I love my AK. But I got an AR platform, and oh my God. But I was actually trained on an AR platform. So, and the one I got has 2 uppers, so I can switch from 5.56 to 300 blackout, depending. If I go deer hunting, I'll probably use the 300 blackout because it's got a 20-inch barrel instead of the shorter 16-inch on the 5.56. And if apparently from my research, there's a subsonic 300 blackout that fires like this huge round, like 300 grain or some shit. And it's just really good for knockdown power against large game. And if you get an inline not suppressor, compensator with subsonic rounds, the thing barely makes very much noise at all. You know, it's almost like having a suppressor but not needing a tax stamp. Whereas the 5.56, as anybody who's ever in the military knows, that's a snappy little bastard. It's loud. You know, but my Kalashnikov is a, as you've seen from the shirt I sometimes wear, it's a 5.45 by 3.9. So it's actually a Bulgarian AK-74N, I think. And I mean, I love it. It's fun. The rounds are dirt cheap, or they used to be super dirt cheap. And like used to, you could get 1,480, I think, or was it 60, whatever, 1,400 and some odd rounds of 5.45 for like $100. And they come in this big flat tin can that you had to open up. And then all the rounds were like in stacks of 20 wrapped in paper. It's a lot more now. Whereas 300 blackout for the decent ammo is like $1.50 a round. So if you're going to go deer hunting with the 300 blackout or whatever, better make sure you hit because that's expensive. Okay, we got Luke over here. He's British. I'm sorry, bro. Interested in American politics. God, I'm bored of them by now. From outside looking in, Trump seems like an insensible choice, all things considered. No. But still intrigued to hear you out. Well, first off, I got my dark MAGA hat on. We have been totally effed directly in the A this last 3 years. What kind of maniac would want 4 more of that? Like literally every single consumable in the United States has went up drastically. Some things by hundreds of % in cost. And we're involved in Ukraine, giving all our money away to those knuckleheads. And we're looking to get involved in the Middle East again. And I already spent a year over there when I was a young man. So Trump, shit was good, man. Gas prices were cheap. Everything was cheap. Everyone was making money. Like the average when between now and Trump, adjusted for inflation, every American family was making like $6,000 more a year, right? Because Bidenomics sucks. And having cackling Kamala, I mean, that woman's running like she's not the incumbent. It's insane to me. Now, I admit you're British, so the people you consider far right in America, we would call communists. And the people that you vote for all the time, the Labor Department, are absolute communists. But even your Tories would be left-wing compared to us. Like, every time I pick up the newspaper and I see what's going on in Britain, it just makes me happy that we basically fought you guys to a standstill and you guys got bored and left. Because poor Canada and Australia and the rest of the Commonwealth having to put up with that shit. And the British will be extinct soon anyway. I mean, you keep letting 1 million young men into your country every year. It's only a matter of time, guy. It's only a matter of time before you don't exist anymore. And hey, you know, Darwinism, I guess. Because those young men are going to marry British women. Yeah, Labor Party. But the Tories are left of anything in America. And they're considered the right wing in England. Yeah, the inflation is happening. Why? It wasn't happening under Trump. Why is it happening now? Is it because the United States tore up all of our deals when it comes to being fuel independent? Could be. And I assure you, giving Ukraine billions and tens of billions of dollars has probably not helped at all either. And I personally love my Ukrainsky brothers, but we all know that they are just puppets. And at least 600,000 of them have died. They're all Orthodox Christian, which is what I am. And in the end, they're not going to win. Everyone knows they're not going to win. Anyone who knows anything about the military or whatever will tell you Ukraine cannot win. Catch you later, Prime. The pandemic, see, that's not something, I don't know how Twitch is, but YouTube gets really freaky if you talk about that coof at all. And you can't blame a president for the coof. I won't blame Biden for the coof. You know, personally, we should have did what Sweden did, which is just ignore it until it went away. That seemed to be the best way to deal with it. All the countries like your own that decided to lock everyone up except for politicians who were free to do whatever they wanted, you didn't do good. You didn't do good. And all of the states in the union that decided to follow that path, they all suck. But I live in the South where we were like, nah, you know what I mean? We're not doing that shit. So there you go. And yes, I agree with Kyle. See, look, that's what warmongers say. You know, that's what warmongers say. If we don't stop him in Ukraine, he might want to go to Poland. Except at no time has the Russian Federation ever threatened anyone, right? The thing is, let me educate you, because obviously whatever channels you watch aren't telling you the truth. When Obama and Biden were in the office, they financed through the CIA the Maidan coup, which threw out the rightfully elected president of Ukraine, right? Because he was too friendly with Russia. Then they emplaced the Zelensky, who is a Jewish liberal, whatever, how he could win an election in a country that's 90% Orthodox Christian. I just don't believe it. He was put into office. And he immediately started using his military to begin punishing the people of Donbass and Luhansk. Over the course of the years that went by, he killed at least 10,000 civilians, at least. He outlawed the Russian language. He started attacking the Orthodox Church like it's his job. He has made illegal elections. So he is your prototypical Stalinist oligarch or totalitarian, right? So Putin warned him about 100 freaking times to stop his bullshit. And of course, he ignored it because England, Boris specifically, went and said, oh no, we got your back. Don't worry about it. Keep doing what you're doing. And then guess what happened? Russia rolled in. And they rolled in so gently. It's like, do you not understand that Russia has the conventional means to make Kiev just a dust pile right now? They could do it. But they're doing what they do. They start small and they build up and they build up and they build up. And now you see the Russians grinding their way across Donbass and Luhansk, and they can't be stopped. And even if the Ukrainians manage to do something here or there, it doesn't freaking matter. Because now we're talking about a war of attrition. And to make things worse, the KD ratio is 10-1. For every Russian soldier that dies, 10 Ukrainians do. And this is from actual neutral. Why did I rabbit ear that? This is from neutral sources like Pakistan, India, etc. You know, this isn't Western news trying to keep a war going so we can continue laundering money through the most corrupt state in Eastern Europe, Ukraine. Also, the leading state in Eastern Europe for child trafficking and sex trafficking and all that. Just an absolutely terrible place, right? So Vladimir Putin's stated goal is to liberate Donbass, Luhansk, and allow them to have a referendum to decide if they want to be independent countries or part of Russia, whichever. But the days of the Ukrainian military, especially the Azov battalion, which are not Orthodox Christians, killing civilians in those oblasts is over. It's done. It's not happening anymore, right? And I think this whole thing ends with Zelensky catching a bullet to the back of the head and Ukraine signing a peace deal that cedes everything on that side of the Dnieper to the people who live there. And they'll never get Crimea back. I mean, you got to be insane to think they're getting Crimea back. Crimea is where Vladimir the Great converted the Rus to Christianity in like 988 AD, back when Kiev was the capital of Russia, because Ukraine was never a country, ever, until the fall of the Soviet Union when they decided it could be. And I don't know why they did that. What's up, Longshot? So yes, you're in Britain. Your media is completely controlled by the state. You are being flooded by military-age male migrants from all over the damn place constantly. You're being forced to pay for it. And you somehow think you understand how to run a good country. Sorry, bro. Get the fuck out of here with that. Of course it is. The BBC is beholden to your state. Don't even try it. Funded by TV. It's owned by the state. Right? You live in a totalitarian government, man. You live in a totalitarian system. You cannot even defend yourself. If you bring up the grooming gangs, you go to prison. If you send somebody a saucy meme on the internet, you go to prison. You don't have freedom of speech, right? You don't have freedom of speech. You don't have freedom to protect yourself. You can own a single barrel breakdown shotgun or a double barrel breakdown shotgun in England. That's what you can own. I can own an AR chambered in 300 blackout that holds 35 rounds if I want. And I can send all the spicy memes I want to anybody, post them on X, and guess what? I'm not going to jail. You are. So a person coming from a country that doesn't have basic human rights probably shouldn't worry about American politics. Right? So yeah, enjoy that. Like, post something that somebody don't like. Say something bad about the LGBT community. See how quick your ass goes to jail. Right? I mean, look how bad they screwed over Tommy Robinson. It's like that guy can't walk down the damn street without getting arrested for something. And then you guys have parades down the street with people waving Palestinian flags. Fuck off. England is truly the island, that big island of trash floating in the Atlantic is England. Islamophobe. Yeah, you should be Islamophobes. You should be. Being an Islamophobe is not a bad idea. You do understand that the Islamic religion is a religion that 100% intends to conquer and enslave you. It's in the book. I've read it. Like, you might be interested to know that in the EU, an imam ordered the Muslims in Italy to fight, to conquer Italy, and the new Italian prime minister, or whatever she is, had his ass deported. And all of them should be deported. Islam is not compatible with Western civilization, right? You guys go to prison if you talk bad about LGBT people. If the Muslims gain power, they will just kill all the LGBT people. So don't worry about it. Yeah, Britain is like the worst example. I mean, the only way you could say, hey, show me a country that used to be absolutely great and is now a pile of shit, Liberia. That's, I guess, a good comparison to Britain, Liberia. And that's our fault because we created that country and we should have actually kept helping them. But for some reason, we abandoned them and now they're ruled by cannibalistic freaking warlords. But as you were talking about human rights earlier, what are your thoughts on the basic human rights to religion? Well, obviously, as an Orthodox Christian, I believe everyone has a right to their religion as long as it's Orthodox. How's that for an answer? You might be interested to know that I'm a Christian nationalist and a monarchist. I play within the American system, and I am a patriot who fought a war for this country because I'm lazy and I'm not willing to go out of my way to try and change things. But you will never hear me say that any religion other than Christianity is the equal of Christianity. And Western society simply would not exist were it not for Christianity. There are a reason that nations that are completely dominated by certain religions suck nuts. There's a reason. And maybe it's the religion. But as a person living in England, and I'm assuming you might be Britain, you could be one of the invaders for all I know. How does it make you feel to see people walking around in burqas. I mean, doesn't that make you feel weird? So you believe people don't have an entire right to religion then? Do you think the Muslims believe that we have a right to religion? I mean, name any Islamic dominated country that allows Christianity to be preached. You go to prison for owning a Bible in damn near every Islamic majority country. But you think we should accept them in? No, there has to be some reciprocity. Oh, I don't know if you can see him. He's on Twitch. Last time you guys could see the Twitch guys. Right? There's no reciprocity here, right? If you can come to my country and build a mosque, I should be able to go to your country and build a cathedral. But it don't work that way, does it, brother? No. Your churches in England are being destroyed and mosques are being built. But not a single Church of England church is being built anywhere in any of those Islamic countries. Nowhere. But you're going to argue about freedom of religion, right? As your whole country is being completely destroyed from the inside. And then you want to have one of the main Sharia. I know what Sharia is. Laws must not be imposed on. Yeah, that's a lie. Do you know what tukia is? I mean, if you want to talk and you want to talk in Arabic, do you know what tukia is? Do you know what jizya is? Like I said, I spent a year in the Middle East. The other Middle Eastern religion out. Like I said on X, I support Israel. I hope they win their war. And I hope that all of the people who consider themselves Israelis go home. That might be a hot take, but it is what it is. If your primary loyalty is to Israel, go. Right? The fact is that countries like Russia, Poland, all of Europe were Christian nations going back 1,500 years in some cases, or 1,000. And now all of a sudden you guys have turned your back on your ancestors, your history, everything. And you're giving your whole country away. And then you're looking at us like we're doing something wrong. I mean, it's just foolish. These are the words of fools. Yes. Atheism is the Trojan horse, right? You go into a country and you spend generations convincing the people to be atheist. And then when you want to institute whatever totalitarian bullshit you want to institute, they will accept it because they don't believe they have natural human rights given to them by a divine creator. So the state becomes your God. And sorry, all you guys on YouTube who aren't seeing both sides of the conversation. But bear in mind, it's your typical left-wing British guy. Well, every British guy is left-wing, let's be honest. Trying to justify the fact that they are willingly allowing themselves to become enslaved to the state, even though the state does not represent them. And they don't. Like, it's like when the Irish thing was going down and they were burning hotels down, and I was kind of watching it, and then I realized that the prime minister or the main leader of Ireland was a guy from West Asia. And I was like, so the IRA fought for, I don't know, maybe hundreds of years, the Irish fought to rule themselves and then immediately turned around and elected a non-Irish person to be their leader. Wow, the Irish are idiots. And all of the Irishmen that died so that the republic could exist are probably rolling in their graves right now, knowing that there's so many people in their government that are not Irish. Hold on a moment. I'm an atheist, and you're not smart enough to be an atheist. That's the problem with atheism. The people who are atheists are typically not smart enough to actually be atheists. 800 plus years, yeah, to get freedom and then turn around and start electing people to rule over you who don't believe like you do, don't live like you do, don't eat the food you eat, come from an entirely alien culture to you. But the British did too. You guys, what, you elected the Pakistani guy? You should ban all dual citizenship people from the government. I agree. Also, it's a joke in the US. Yeah, it's like koala, without getting too whatever. People are always saying Russian collusion, Russian interference in American whatever. And then AIPAC exists. And it's like, a little hypocritical, wouldn't you say? Yeah, a little hypocritical. Of course, guys, just FYI, from the time I was like 8 till the time I was 27, I was Jewish. My dad was too, but we both converted to Orthodoxy, I guess about 10 years ago. Yeah, the Europeans are just freaking herd. They're just herd. You guys, I wonder if it's because of World War I and II. Did all of the best Europeans die in those wars? And the only ones that were left over were the ones that just had faulty genes. And so now you've got a whole continent basically descended from freaking weak men, except for the few in France that luckily got knocked up by Americans. But they've lost Paris, you know. Qualavati, damn, Twitter's burning up today. What's up with that? Trump's mom was born in Scotland. No, it doesn't. But if a person does not share a culture with you, they should not be in the government. Also, dual citizenship, I don't think you understand what that means, because Trump is only the citizen of the United States. He does not have a citizenship of the UK. I refute the Roman Church and the Trinitarian fallacy. The lineage of prophecy includes Karl Marx. Bert Biggie, Karl Marx was a Satanist. Look it up. And I am Orthodox Christian, which means my religion predates Roman Catholicism by 1,058 years or so. We are the first Christian church, unchanged. So whatever, you can refute the Trinity all you want. The refutation of something does not make it false. So refute it, go nuts. But one day we're both going to find out the truth. And if you're right, doesn't matter. And if I'm right, you're effed. Sharp, for 70 years, they have all been in bed with the communists. They've been gulping down liberalism and tolerating and embracing degeneracy. So this here is what you get. Yeah, just weak men. Am I in the wrong chat? You're not, George. The thing is for whatever reason, the Twitter posts aren't showing up to the YouTube guys. And if one of you guys know how I can fix that, because one time we were doing it and everybody could see everybody's posts. So I don't know. Yeah, Marx was jobless. He knocked up his maid. He is a horrible father, abusive, a Satanist, 100%. And his, I think, father or grandfather was a rabbi. That's your precious Marx. Just the socialism and communism can only exist if you have a society full of weak, envious people. Because then the people that are going to turn you into their personal cattle, they'll lie to you and blame people who have more than you do for your problems instead of you having to accept that you're a failure in life. And you'll agree with them, and then you'll get them in power. And then the first thing they'll do is start genociding your dumbasses. I'm not playing that game, Luke. Not playing it. Because the next thing is you'll say, well, communism's never really existed. Not playing it. You can go try that shit with someone who doesn't see right through your argument. See? You can take it however you want. I'm telling you, you're going to try the whole define communism, and then I'm going to argue that communism has never existed. And then that's a stupid argument and a waste of time, right? But the definition of communism, have you ever read Das Kapital? I mean, Marx wrote a book about it, right? Yeah, I take that as you're wrong. You haven't been right yet. As a matter of fact, technically, this is how stupid your country is. If I were to call your country and say that you deeply offended me, they might show up at your door and throw you in jail. That's how stupid the UK is. Again, you have no free speech. What is James' Twitter handle? DM James? Oh, Cage fan or Cage super fan. Because as those of you who have been around a long time know, love me some Nicolas Cage movies. Yeah, I don't know if I believe in any of that. I think I would just call Koalavati, not that I disagree. I think I would just call it all totalitarianism. Communism is a moneyless system. Yeah, that must be why Trotsky came to the United States before the revolution. And what's his name? Jacob, that owns the banking institute, gave him a shit ton of gold to take back with him to Russia, as well as fighters trained in New York to help him with his revolution, right? Yeah, a moneyless system. Get out of here. Money doesn't even exist. That's the problem with you people. You don't even understand what money is. I don't think you understand why and how. Yes, I do. Like the wife of the priest who got thrown in prison for telling a trans woman that she will never be a woman. And the cops came around and she got in trouble for that. But guess what? A trans woman will never be a genetic female. That's biology, right? And biology has not suddenly changed in the last 5 years. And this is the issue with a guy like me who's 50. It's like I've been alive long enough to see the changes, And some of these changes are happening so fast. It's like from one day to the next, some kind of new terminology comes. I'm ready to come over to Twix and start swinging, but I can't find. Yeah. Caroline Farrell got arrested. Electronic stuff. Remember the one guy who just reposted the meme of the LGBT flag, and they arrested him too, and they arrested the guy he sent it to. I mean, yeah, your country's a joke. Oh, money doesn't exist. Yeah, I can elaborate on this because back in the 80s in American high school, they taught us economics. Money represents something, but itself is not a thing, right? So anything can be used as money if the two people involved agree. Thus the barter system, right? We're still playing the barter game, except the pound sterling you guys used to that used to be worth a lot, and the US dollar that used to be worth a lot, and now both are equally worthless, become the middleman between the bartering. So if I wanted a rabbit, but all I had was a cabbage, and the guy with the cabbage didn't want a cabbage, then I would have to work my way around this huge chain of bartering until I could finally get the thing the guy with the rabbit wanted, right? But by introducing money, it made it easier. But the money itself doesn't matter. Economics is basically, in a perfect free market society, which is not what we have, the consensual exchange of goods or services between two people where both parties agree and hopefully benefit. But yeah, if every US dollar got burned up today and they started minting, I don't know, weird coins with like clown heads on it, it wouldn't change the way trade works at all. Hey, Raven, you mentioned in an earlier video that if you played MechWarrior Destiny, you would use an abstract. Yes, I did. I would probably just run the game like I do D&D or something like that, and use the Destiny rules as written, and just tell them, look, you're 300 yards away from, or however many, from an enemy, and this is what you need to roll, etc. Yeah, money is only worth what people believe it's worth. And right now, no one believes the American dollar is worth anything. In order for money to be worth anything, it has to be rare. And we have flooded the market with so many US dollars that a US dollar today is worth like 10 cents compared to one, decades ago, as far as buying power, like there was a time when you could buy a 1957 Chevy Bel Air for like $3,000. And now if you want to buy a Ford F-150 truck with none of the luxury, just a F-150 truck, it'll set you back $50,000. That's how useless our money has become. You agree with me? Well, you know what? I'm glad you agree with me. That's just inflation, yes, but inflation doesn't have to happen. That's the issue. Inflation doesn't have to happen. Sitting around and saying, my pound sterling used to be worth a pound of silver and now it's not. It's barely worth anything of silver. That doesn't change the fact that it didn't have to be that way. That bankers and government institutions made it that way because they're making money off of your sweat and off of your back. but it never had to be that way. Yeah, the BRICS nations are starting to get nuts, and Russia put their ruble on a gold standard. And that's why Russia barely has any national debt, and the ruble is actually outperforming the dollar or the pound or the EU or the euro, I should say. Since the war in Ukraine happened and we put all these whatevers on Russia, they've just got richer. And of course, we can't go to war with them because your island would be erased from freaking existence in about 5 minutes. No one wins a nuclear war. And you are a madman if you think if we started invading Russian sovereign territory, they would nuke the shit out of everything, just like America would. I don't know if England has nukes, but just like England might, depending on, you're already being invaded, so whatever. Coins and gems. Yeah, I mean, it could be anything. It's just, I mean, there are literally cultures that existed that use seashells to help them, you know, do the trade. It's a freaking seashell. You know, I mean, almost everything on the planet has been used as a form of currency at some time or other, including people. Yeah, all of the bullshit. Yeah, like, do you guys ever see videos of Russian supermarkets? They're full of food. And the people are not upset. You can go online right now and see cameras of people walking down the sidewalk in Moscow, which is way cleaner than Philadelphia or London, which barely has any Britons living in it. I mean, it's like, the hell are you guys talking about? They just sell their petrochem to China, who turns around and sells it to whomever, or India, which is one of the fastest growing economies on the planet. And they make, trillions of dollars. I mean, no one knows how much Vladimir Putin is worth, but it's probably trillions of dollars. Trillions with a T. But you'll never know. But he owns stock in every Russian petrochem company. So, you know, he's getting he's getting a bite out of everything, that dude. Britain has a few nukes. Well, good for them. I don't know if it'll help them, but, you know, inflation will always happen. Why? Why do you believe inflation will always happen? Well, I mean, the Russians as a people have very strong opinions about anything LGBT because Russia is predominantly Orthodox Christian or Islamic. There are the oblasts in the south that are predominantly Islamic. And the only reason the two get along is because if you F around like Chechnya did, you find out like Chechnya did. Neither one of those religions is pro-LGBT and never will be. Now in England, Muslims will pretend to be pro-LGBT, but that's called Tukid. As soon as they get powerful enough to impose their will, all that shit's over. I mean, the man wrote about it in the book. He told you how to do the thing, and that's exactly what they're doing. Except soft-brained people are too stupid to realize they're being had. They're being had. Islam is not just a religion, it's a political ideology. It's both. Yeah, kind of like communism in a way. Tucker Carlson went to Moscow and his jaw hit the floor from how impressed he was with everything he saw. Yes. Yeah. That's one thing, Shark, I noticed when it was showing the pictures of people walking down the street in Moscow. One of the things that struck me was how well dressed they all were. It's like, are they out on dates or something? Like, these people look good. They look good. They look healthy. They're just walking around. It's like, inflation will always happen because money is always being printed, but it doesn't have to be. That's my point. And the reason in America money is being printed is because the national whatever reserve is not part of the government. It's a privately owned institution that forces the US to buy dollars and then pay interest on the dollars they buy. It's the greatest scam in American history. Yeah, there is no usury in Islamic countries. And Islamic people, like up in Dearborn, Michigan and stuff, they have their own banking systems that do not use usury. Because like Christians, Muslims do not go in for all the usury thing. Except Christians do, because, we're not supposed to. And our scripture, it strongly advises not to get involved in usury, but we do it anyway. I mean, look at Ivanhoe. Ivanhoe had to raise a ton of money to get King Richard out of prison in Germany, where he deserved to be for being an asshole. And as a result of taking out loans from people, laws were passed that allowed usury in England and money lending. And the British have been screwed since. The British don't even own their banking system. Bank of London isn't even part of the UK. It is an independent city-state with its own laws and everything. So, yeah, inflation does not have to happen. Think about when England used coins, say brass pennies and half pennies and silver eagles and whatever, right? Whatever it was, shillings and whatnot, right? The only time you might have fluctuations of price would be when goods and services become either rare or more common. If they become more plentiful, prices went down. And if they become rare, prices went up. That's not inflation. Inflation is a totally different thing. Inflation is the willful destruction of the value of money, because it destroys the savings of people who work their whole life, and it makes certain groups of people incredibly wealthy at the expense of the entire civilization. They're not stupid. They lack I think communism does appeal to stupid people, like anyone who listens to Destiny or Hassan Piker and thinks they're smart is obviously running at about 80 IQ. You would literally have to be almost mentally challenged to think anything they said was an actual good point. Plus, they're both incredibly wealthy people. I agree. Koala Vadi says they have a room temperature IQ, and yeah, that's basically what I said. Yeah, law and order and culture. That is the thing. England has decided they don't have a culture. Now, there was a time when Britain had a culture. They made their specific British kinds of food, and They had British types of activities, and they all went to the Church of England, and they all did all this stuff. And then at some point in the last 60 years or so, the British surrendered their own culture. They turned their backs on their ancestors, and everything has went to shit since then. I mean, the thing with Britain is they had the English common law, which our Constitution is based on, but no one ever wrote it down, I guess. So now their police can do anything they want to you, and you cannot do a damn thing about it. You have zero rights in your own country. You cannot own a pointed chef knife if you live in London, which is also one of the top places to get splashed by acid or hacked to bits with a machete by a third worlder. So yeah, whatever. Having English people talk any kind of shit when they are a failing nation it would be laughable if it wasn't such a crying shame. At one time the British put an end to slavery. They conquered one of the largest empires ever. Never ever apologize for winning. I mean, the United Kingdom, other than they did bad things, every empire does, but they did amazing things. They brought the light of science and medicine and literature and education all over the world. And now they're totally just handing it all over to savages because they are so self-loathing. It's absolutely despicable, and it will not happen in the United States. I can guarantee you that, because unlike the UK, we have the means to change things. Yeah, it's against the law to not talk to the police. Yeah, in the United States, you ain't got to say shit. And if they ask for your ID, in most states, you don't got to give it to them. You just ask them, am I being detained? What crime have I committed? And if they can't tell you, you go on your way. And that's not that weird, those weirdos that, whatever. That's just the U.S. law. You don't got to answer the door to a cop in the United States. And if they ain't got a warrant, they can't come in unless you invite them in. But if you invite them in, you're an idiot. Because the first thing they're going to do is start looking for things they can use to arrest you. So, yeah, if they're knocking on your front door, don't even open the front door. Talk through the door. Ask them if they have a warrant. And if they don't, tell them to get off your property. Yeah, the British people went from the most powerful empire that did the most good in the entire world to a bunch of weak bastards that attack their own people anytime one of them stands up and points out how their country's going to shit. The last decade, the number one name for baby men, little baby boys in England has been Mohammed. And you think things are good? You guys are being, demographics is a form of warfare. And the Britons are losing. And like I said, Islam is a government system as well. It's a political system. So when the Muslims gain enough power to finally take over the UK, they will force you into Sharia. And you will get to either pay the jizya or convert or die. And all of the LGBT people you're so proud about dancing down the streets will be chucked off the London Tower or something like that. And you know what? You'll deserve it. You'll deserve it because you let it happen. So, the very same people who held the thin red line against every other country on the planet, and you just rolled over like French whores and gave your own country away. I swear to God, Harold and William the Conqueror, all of your ancestors have to be so ashamed of the modern day Britain. James, I wouldn't attribute all of British successes to their merits. Well, yeah, but that's a merit. If you've got the money to buy the army, most of whom were Irish, and send them across the sea to beat the shit out of Sudanese or I don't know, whoever you're doing, you do you, man. Like I said, in Karakorum or whatever it's called, the capital of Mongolia, they built like 100-foot tall statue of Genghis Khan, like a big shining thing of Genghis Khan, because the Mongolians are not a bit ashamed of the fact that at one point they conquered most of the damn world. And why would they be? And why would I try and make them feel guilty for it? Hell no. I'm not a hater. I'm a congratulator. If I ever met a Mongolian person and he wanted to talk about it, I'd be like, good job, bro. Even though, you know, they did burn Kiev down and kill a lot of Russians. But, you know, war is hell. I can tell you that from firsthand experience. Yes, and that's what's the problem with Western civilization. If there is a problem, is most Western civilization, specifically the United States, was designed around the idea that the vast majority of the population would be Christian and therefore act with honor and tell the truth and not be thieves. You know, there would always be the outlier that were, but that was the idea of our Constitution, right? But if you import a huge population that doesn't share those moral touchstones, then the Constitution starts falling apart because evil people can use the Constitution against the Constitution. Therefore, you can have the Church of Satan demanding statues of Bahamut be built because freedom of religion, which is nowhere in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, really. Not as we talk about it. It was, you know, I think it's based on a letter Jefferson, an exchange Jefferson had with a minister somewhere about how they would not set up a national state religion, you know. But it wasn't like when Jefferson was writing about freedom to practice religion, he was talking about Islam or Satanism. He wasn't. He was talking about your various denominations of Protestantism and Papist, whatever, you know, because I don't think there were very many Orthodox people in America back then. They were still mostly in Eastern Europe and the Middle East before, you know, they all got murdered. Yeah. That's the whole thing. Religion is linked to culture, and culture will determine how a civilization functions. The British have completely given up on their own culture. Not only have they given up on it, they're ashamed of it, and they think everyone else's culture is superior to their own. And it looks like the Irish are following right down that road too. But Russia isn't, Poland isn't, Hungary isn't. So, you know, whatever. And America will not. As a matter of fact, one of the fastest growing religions in the United States, especially amongst young men, is Russian Orthodox Christianity. The main reason so many people in the United States have gotten such a bad taste in their mouth to Christianity is because the Christianity that they've been exposed to is so weak that it doesn't offer anything. You know, like if your Baptist church is hanging a rainbow flag on Pride Month or whatever, most people who actually are Christian are not going to deal with that shit. And then they go off and they don't practice, right? But then they go online and they see this 2,000 years of history and continuity, and the fact that orthodoxy never bends the knee ever to anyone. And young men who are looking for something to do with all their testosterone and shit realize this is the church for me. I mean, it happened to me. It's happened to a lot of people. Even my bro Leth has said if there was an Orthodox church near where he lives in Kentucky, he'd go to it. Because the Protestant faiths have all failed. They're all just bending the knee to society, to these social, I don't even want to call them social norms, because there's nothing normal about it. Yeah, weak, feminized, and heretical. They are. And they will be judged sharp. In the end, they will be. I mean, the Church of England in England, I don't know how the Anglicans are everywhere else, but I mean, Eddie Izzard makes fun of it. Like you go to services and they read like, you know, a magazine and, you know, there's nothing to it. They don't care. You know, there's a mosque 2 blocks down the street drowning your church services out with their call to prayer through giant ass speakers because they want you to know you're conquered. You know? I agree, Off-Grid Gaming. I agree. But there has to be drastic reformations, which in my opinion means they need to go back to a more orthodox way of doing things. They practically already are. If they would just get rid of their innovations and stuff, they would be orthodox. The Roman Catholics, if they would drop all of their heresies, would be orthodox. 100%. They were orthodox for over 1,000 years. And then they decided to institute all this bullshit through a pope, which, as I've said before, is a word used by Coptic Egyptians that just means bishop. That's what Coptic Egyptians call their bishops, popes. I mean, you know, the Pope in Rome is just supposed to be a bishop, but it got politicized during the Middle Ages, and it's turned into something not real good, to be honest. Something not real good. So, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, if you're a young man out there, you can start acting like a man. You could do that. There are a faithful remnant, though. There are. You've got a lot of Catholics that completely don't go along with all the new heresies. Yep. I agree with you, Sharp. The Catholics are my brothers in Christ. No. And Raven. Oh, wait, Raven. I think we did talk about this. I think I said it was, oh my God. The regiment from this area's symbol is the Archangel Michael descending from heaven with a flaming sword. It's not Arcturus, but I have all of the little transfers to put on my Mac. It's got Michael with the flaming sword coming down. What is the name of that? 25th Merrick Militia. Yep. So wherever they're from, that'll be my favorite. But Raven, you know more about Merrick and everything than I do. We both know it. I'm practically, you know, I'm practically retarded when it comes to Baltech lore, and you're practically a genius. It's the only thing you and I agree on is Baltech. Otherwise, we'd be up in arms with each other because we always are. But if we talk Battletech, then we're best friends. It's the weirdest shit. And I wish it didn't have to be that way. I really do. I really wish people were not so into their own political bullshit that people could just let it go for a while and not give a F how their buddies are voting or not voting or whatever. That's what I wish. And it was that way in the 80s and the 90s and even the 2000s. But then 2016 happened and everyone on the left turned into a maniac and got hardcore Trump derangement syndrome and started acting like a bunch of mindless cultists. Time of War or Destiny for you. Maybe even bring Hungar into it. Hungar would love it. Hungar would love it. He is finally back to role playing. He is playing in our Vampire the Masquerade game. And he really went outside of his normal whatever. And he chose to play a Ventrue. So, Clan Ventrue, which was surprising to me because he almost always plays Toreador or Setite. But he decided to go Ventrue this time, so cool. Sure, yeah, good gaming there. There are a lot of good people everywhere. There are even people who claim to be atheists that behave more Christian than a lot of Christians do. And I believe it's because even though they claim to be atheists, deep down on the inside, they still hear the word, you know? And all we can do for those guys is pray for them. That one day they'll get over whatever has made them pick what they pick and, you know, join the right team. But can't force them. Can't force them. Unless you're Islamic, and then you can force them. But if you're Orthodox, you can't force them. My mom was evangelical and my dad is Jewish. So, or was. I mean, I guess if you count Judaism as an ethnicity, still is. I mean, his family were Russian Jews that fled the communist revolution because they had money in Russia and they could read the writing on the wall. And not the first revolution, the second one, where the bad guys won. There was a first one where they lost. And then they come over to America and settled in New York, just like frickin' Fievel the Mouse. Except instead of going out west, he ended up coming down south. So, and as you all know, because I say it all the time, I love my pops. And as a very young man, he taught me how to be a mensch. And I wanted to be just like him. And if that meant going from basically not really having a religion to converting to Judaism, that's what happened. Of course, I have stories about how that worked out, but I wanted to be just like him. And then you know what ended up happening? 20 years later, I become Orthodox Christian, and he ended up becoming like me. And he even said I was a mensch, one of my proudest moments, and thanked me for leading him to Christianity, even though he fought every inch of the way. Like, I'm telling you what, every damn inch of the way. There were a couple times he called me a Nazi. He tried the Paulist argument on me. I mean, everything you can think of, to not be Christian, he tried. And I just kept saying, well, you know, it says here this, it says here that. And eventually, maybe I wore him down. I don't know. He would ask me questions and I'd answer them. And then after a couple of very fiery years, next thing I know, he said he was walking across the parking lot at a Publix and he felt the Spirit. And he said a man came up to him and said, do you mind if I baptize you? And he said, nope. And he got baptized right there. And now he teaches Sunday school. You know? So truly, you know, miracles can happen. You know? I mean, one of our greatest teachers, Seraphim Rose, began his life as an atheist, homosexual from a Jewish family that was hardcore addicted to heroin. And then something happened, and he became an ascetic monk in Colorado. And he wrote tons of books and like spiritual things, and he became one of the most respected members of the ascetic orders. You know what I mean? Look up Seraphim Rose. He's got tons of like books and stuff. And then Father Sparadon, who has a YouTube channel, he was an Anglican. And one day he was walking down the street and something hit him. And now he's a British Orthodox Christian who teaches orthodoxy. And the same thing happened to Father Karameikos Ware, who is a bishop now. He was an Anglican priest, and he actually, I think he might have went to Russia on a to try and convert Russians. And while he was in Russia, he converted to Orthodoxy. Because when they went there, is the universe magical? The universe works according to the laws that have been put into place by the creator of the universe. So does that mean it's magical? I don't know. I do know in Judaism, especially Orthodox Judaism, they do believe in necromancy and magic, and that the Kabbalah is all about it. So have you ever read the Lesser or Greater Key of Solomon or the Goetia? You know, I mean, is the universe magical? That's a good question. A better question is, should we be messing with it if it is magical? In the late Third Succession War, 3025, 25th American Militia was based in Daibon, what you probably don't say the last because it's got that French thing, Daibon, which is an independent border world, not attached to a particular province. Yes, you have to be a federal guy. I'm sure we'll figure it out. I mean, I have nothing but love for the federal guys, even the ones that burn Atlanta down. Like I said, that's the question. You always bring up, when I talk about Lee, you always bring up Sherman. And then I always point out that Sherman had a great deal of love and respect for the Confederate soldier and was best friends with a Confederate officer. But then the philosophy here is total war. Is it better than a long drawn out war? And I'll tell you what, I think it might be. You know, I mean, it's horrible because war is horrible. But would you rather have an incredibly brutal war that lasts a couple months or drag a war out for 15 damn years like we did in Vietnam? Which one, by and large, is the better option for all the people involved? Oh, he did his job. Absolutely. I mean, dude, I love General Lee. I think he was a great general, even though Longstreet's my favorite. But that don't mean I don't like Sherman. Now, by today's standards, he would be considered a war criminal. But that doesn't change what I was saying about, is it superior, in anybody's opinion who wants to jump in, to have a short, incredibly brutal war, or to drag a war out for decades? What is the superior position there? Me personally, I think a short, incredibly brutal war is superior. You know, somebody wins, somebody loses, then everybody can go back to whatever. And, you know, that's okay. That's okay. You know, like I said, I've been a Chief fan since Christian Okoye was there, right? So I'm not above supporting the losers. I know that the Confederacy lost. That does not make me any less proud of the bravery and the honor with which your average, not Raiders, but your average Confederate fought with. And even the Union guys respected that. It's only in modern times that modern day Yankees are so disrespectful to their Confederate brothers. This is a modern thing. This is not the way it was when I was younger. You could be from the North and still be like, yeah, the Rebs gave a hell of a fight. You know, Lee was a great general. You know, you could show respect towards your honorably defeated opponent. But now you can't. You can't do that. You can't have, and when I say you, I just mean a lot of lefties. They lack the ability to have the decorum and the grace to treat the guys they defeated at least as humans who fought a fair war. I mean, it's not like the Confederates were running around just being assholes. They were lining up and fighting fair battles, you know, by the rules of war, most of them. I'm not super proud of my ancestors that were involved with Quantrell, but hey, that's okay. So, I mean, I guess all I would say to these new people who have decided that the Confederates were traitors, etc., is have grace, man. Have the common courtesy to respect an enemy that fought hard and did his best, acted with aplomb and decorum at all times, for the most part, and never broke any war crimes, except for Quantrell. You know, I mean, a lot of those men went on to be members of the Union military after the war. So, yeah. I'm not saying we should like aspire to be losers, but I am saying that, like, when I play a game of 40K, right? If I win, I still shake my opponent's hand and say, good game. You know, good game. You tried. George Custer's younger brother received the Medal of Honor twice. Jesus. Well, there is one thing you can say about Custer. He might have been an asshat, but he was brave. And he was one of the Union's best cavalry officers to ever fight in that war. There were a couple of times where Custer's actions literally changed the course of a battle to the Union side. Yeah, there's a couple of times where his quick actions with his cavalry pulled a Union victory out of what was looking like a Union defeat. The problem with Custer is that some generals were not happy with how willing he was to lose men. because all these maneuvers he would do while they would win the battle, he would have like a 70% casualty rate. And a lot of people were like, holy shit, bro, calm down. And whether you think he was evil or not, that man died on his feet at Little Bighorn. He died on his feet fighting to the death. So, you know, you don't have to necessarily be a good person to be a good warrior. You see what I'm saying? And when I judge a lot of these people, I'm not judging them on if they were a good person or not. I'm judging them on how did they do as a warrior. So, yeah. I think that's the difference between me and Raven. And I think if Raven learns anything from interacting with me, that should be the thing he should take away. Raven, you do not have to hate Robert E. Lee. You can respect his accomplishments without being pro-Confederacy, right? It's like you can respect the accomplishments of Rommel without being a member of the No-No party. It's like you got to be able to separate your emotion from fact, I guess is what I'm saying. Always overshadowed by the older brother. Hungar knows what you mean by that, Raven. Yeah, Custer was brave. He led cavalry charges no one else in the Union would have ever thought of. And like I said, he turned the course of battles, but his casualty rate was truly horrendous. The first person to win 2 Medals of Honor, both times involved capturing Confederate regimental flags. See, even though my family mostly fought for the Confederacy, I respect that. I respect that. I mean, granted, I wish he'd been on our side, but sounds to me like he is one hell of a warrior and one hell of a brave man. Sounds to me like he's the kind of man I wish we had more of right now today. Instead of these no chest having, roll over like a bitch people who call themselves men. What I wouldn't give to have a couple hundred people like that. This government would be straightened out. This country would be straightened out in no time. But instead, all we got is weakness. We got men that have allowed themselves to be convinced to hate themselves. You know, by being told that they're showing off their toxic masculinity. I got a question for all of you. What the fuck is toxic masculinity? What is that? Is that just being a man? You know, if you're not feminine enough, you're toxically masculine. I mean, my wife would strongly disagree, but there are times that I think the 18th Amendment was the stupidest shit we ever did. Mainly because of the hardcore purple hair feminist. And I shouldn't, you know, put everybody, I shouldn't paint with such a broad brush. You know, there are a lot of good women out there doing the best they can. General Robert E. Lee had to politely decline Lincoln's offer. Yeah, because he refused to bear arms against his Virginians. Now, Lee's problem was caution. That was his problem. And also with, what's his name, not doing his job and spending too much time raiding a rail yard. What's his name? Starts with an S. Is it Sheridan? Is the leader of a cavalry / artillery, a mounted artillery regiment. He was supposed to be out scouting. Because he didn't scout, Lee didn't attack first day of Gettysburg, despite the fact that Longstreet told him to do so. He couldn't tell him, but that was his, when asked what he should do, General Longstreet, who is not a glamorous general at all, but was an absolute workhorse of a general for both the Union and the Confederacy, and I think later the Union, he told Lee, attack. And Lee was like, no, we can't. We don't know what's over there. Well, I mean, not that it would have changed the war probably, but had Lee and the Confederates attacked Gettysburg day one, they would have crushed the Union soldiers because they outnumbered them like 10-1. But because Lee waited that extra time, it allowed the Union forces to dig in and reinforce, at which point Lee shouldn't have attacked. At that point, what he should have done is withdrawn back to Virginia. I mean, it's easy for me to sit here and armchair quarterback what Lee should have done, but you know what I mean, right? But Lee was war weary, and I think he lost a couple of sons during the war. And then after the war, they stole all of his property, which eventually his descendants got money for. And he went to teaching at, I think, the Citadel Military School. I could be wrong, but I think it was the Citadel Military School where Lee went to become a teacher. And it's so funny. It's like the modern day leftist Yankee hates the modern day right wing Confederate respecter way more than the people who actually fought the war hated each other. You know what I mean? Like Lee had no ill will towards any of the Union generals. They ended up working together. And what's his name? Sherman, the guy that burned everything. He was the pallbearer at a Confederate general's funeral. And he was also known for treating Confederate soldiers that surrendered to him very well because of his respect. And that was back when states were like mini countries, and a state had a stronger identity than the nation. So, we can argue whether it was better decentralized or with a stronger federal identity all we want, but yeah. I'm getting ready to probably go to bed, honestly. Arguing with British people over how stupid they are, that kept me on for a bit. And then talking a little bit about tech and kind of trying to extend an olive branch to Raven. That was a good thing that needed to happen. I don't want Raven to think I hate him, because I don't. But I'm not going to stand by while he insults my ancestors. I don't insult his ancestors. Hell, for all we know, we got the same ancestors. I mean, if you go far enough back in the Bible, we do, right? But people were too nasty about it. It's like the Civil War, it happened. I don't even know if the world would have been better if they had won. It might have not been better. Might have been worse. I do know that I won't play modern Deadlands because they got rid of the Confederacy. I do know that. Because the guy said people he was playing with felt uncomfortable. I would have told him to go play somewhere else. Because, I mean, that's been the setting for like 30 years. Why would you feel uncomfortable? Especially if you're playing like Pinkerton Agents or something like that. Why would you feel uncomfortable? If anything, that's a big old pool of people for you to frickin' be against. You know, if your opponent or your storyteller wants to make like some Union or Confederate guys out to be like baddies, you could go nuts with that. You know, you could play whatever, but nope, erased it from history, which is why I bought the original orange reprints on Amazon for like $20 a piece. And now, if I want to play Deadlands, which my wife made a character for, I will play the original Deadlands, which is better than this new Savage Worlds version anyway. All right, guys. So this is the first new Outlaw Josie Wells is a zombie outbreak weird Western. See, that would be, well, Deadlands. In the original Deadlands, after the Battle of Gettysburg, what stopped the Union from actually being able to chase the rebel army was that all the dead there got up and started trying to eat everybody. And so the whole nature of the war changed because Lee was able to pull back and the Union Army was stuck fighting zombies. And then Lincoln died of typhoid fever or something. And the president that became president after Lincoln was basically not really into the war thing. So every young man that picked up a rifle, whether he put on a blue shell coat or a gray shell coat or even a butternut shell coat, depending if you're from Carolina, had their own reasons. And we will never know whether they were pro-slavery, pro-state, just fighting for mom and pa back home, anti-slavery, whatever. We won't know. What we do know is a bunch of the greatest human beings to ever exist on this planet met each other over and over and time again on the field of battle and fought honorably against one another to settle the situation. And the situation is settled as God willed it. That's what I would say about the Civil War. You know, that's my last statement on that. The situation was settled. Now, in a better situation, like if I could go back in time, I would go back in time and say, President Lincoln, listen, fighting a war against the South is going to cost so much money. It would be so much cheaper to just do what the British did and buy every slave in the South and then free them. And hopefully he would have listened. And there wouldn't have even been a war. Because that's what the British did. When they outlawed slavery, the British government bought all the slaves owned by British people and freed them. So, okay. You know, can't be pissed about that. I mean, you might have spent today's equivalent of 20 grand for this guy, but you got your money back and all right. Show up and get bear sprayed. Yeah, the Pinkertons showing up to get magic cards. I'd told them to pound sand. I wouldn't have even opened the door. If they said Pinkerton, I might have racked around in my 870 just to let them know. Because I'll tell you what, in closing, the scariest sound you will ever hear is a pump shotgun racking around. If it's not you. Like if you're in the dark and you hear that, yeah, that'll make you want to poop yourself. Every time. I know. I've been on the receiving end of that. And if they knocked on the door and you didn't open the door and told them to go away and they didn't want to and you racked around, I bet you they'd go away. You Canadians are off the hook. So the whole freaking reason that we had to come up with like rules for war is you damn Canadians running amok, breaking all the rules, just being vicious. Jackson, Mississippi, a Southern belle. You know what? There's nothing wrong with that. The South, the North, the Midwest, the West Coast, we have our own cultures and traditions and food and stuff like that. And there is nothing wrong with that. Like a lot of people from up north, when they see how I eat, they're like, you eat like black people. And I'm like, I never even heard of that. Because it never occurred to me that people didn't like pork chop and barbecue and fried chicken and watermelon and pinto beans and cornbread and shit like that. That's just what we all ate, white, black, or regardless, right? Whereas up in Boston, they're not eating that. So, yeah. And you know what? New England, keep your culture. We're keeping ours. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with being proud of the accomplishments of your ancestors. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, should I feel ashamed because I'm got a lot of Slavic or Scandinavian blood in me? Should I be ashamed that the Vikings wrecked ass all over the place? No. I'm not. Kind of proud of it, really. And my Slavic blood, not ashamed of anything the Slavs did either. And as an American, even though I will admit America did some shady shit, not ashamed of it. Because when you win, you don't apologize for winning. You win. That's it. And then if the guy you're going against, as long as they're willing to behave in an honorable way, you put it behind you and you go on about your business. And then you and that other person maybe can be friends even. But, if people are going to hold grudges and shit, then, that's no bueno. That is no bueno at all. I know I got a little bit philosophical there. I'm getting tired. When I get tired, I start getting all in my own head and philosophical and thinking about shit I have no reason to think about. I have 20 weapons within 5 feet of me. I have one, but it has 30 freedom pellets in it. So, I'm not counting knives. I got a lot of knives laying around. Mostly my Case XX Sodbusters that Hungar bought for me. I typically carry them or keep them around, but no, man, I'm gangsta as shit. Glock for life. Hungar makes fun of me because he says I got that glaucoma. I can only ever see myself owning a Glock. I'm always like, not necessarily true. I've got a Springfield or whatever it is, but man, I do love my Glock 19. That's just fact. So we're going to end this 4 hours. This is the first live stream that will be on the channel. And as I said, the future will be me going pretty deep, giggity, into Free League. Free League Games is going to be the first company I go into. It's going to have its own playlist, and I'm going to go over every Free League game I own and explain what's awesome about it and what's not. And spoiler alert, I love Free League games, so it's going to be good. And if you guys want to watch it, then watch it, you know. And next Monday, if not before, but we'll see because I haven't been live streaming as much. Next Monday, I will be back and we will chat however long we chat and whatever we want to talk about. Battletech, Destiny, how shitty Europe is for giving away their rights. I don't know. Whatever you guys want to talk about. But until then, peace and love to all of you. Stay safe out there. I mean, everybody's pretty tense right now, but the good news is one way or another, it's going to work itself out. So just have faith and look for upcoming videos from your boy. And good night. Chomp chomp. Good night, Chesty.